wielding the gavel. Good evening and welcome to the regular meeting of the Design Review Committee on Wednesday, June 18th, 2025. I now call the meeting to order at 5 p.m. Lisa, can you please take the roll call?
Member Melissa Bates?
Here.
Member Getz?
Here.
Member Johnson?
Here.
Vice Chair Boyd?
Here.
Chair Esther Jacobson Bates.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Charlene, will you lead us today, please?
Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Charlene. Okay, so we're going to start with approving the agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the order of the agenda as presented?
I move to approve the order.
Do I have a second? Richard, are you unmuted?
I'm sorry. I move to approve the order of the agenda.
Do I have a second?
I will second it.
Okay, having heard a motion and a second to approve the order of the agenda, Lisa, can you please take a roll call vote?
Member Melissa Bates?
Approve.
Member Getz?
Approve.
Member Johnson?
Approved.
Vice Chair Boyd?
Approve.
Chair Esther Jacobson Bates.
Approved.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to go ahead and move on to consent items. And Lisa, again, up to you to introduce, please.
Items on consent are typically routine and will be approved in one motion. The chair will call on anyone wishing to address the committee on any consent item on the agenda which has not been pulled by the committee for discussion. Each speaker will be permitted to speak only once, and comments will be limited to a total of 3 minutes.
So we're going to start with in-person public comments. Anybody in the room? I don't see anybody here. Anybody on Zoom wishing to speak? Okay. So at this point, we're going to have well, first of all, is there anything that anybody would like to pull from the consent agenda for further discussion?
I have a question on it. I don't know if it's the way to approve it or not. Item D there, to approve a sign permit, that already exists. That sign is there. So I don't know why we're approving a permit now.
So that is for a sign that has not been approved yet. So the applicant had to submit for the sign permit.
Okay, even though the sign already exists.
Correct. It still has to be approved by the
Yeah.
DRC.
Because he went ahead, or the person went ahead with installation prior to receiving permit. So would you like to pull that item for discussion?
No,
or?
I guess not.
Okay. So then, with that said, do I have a motion to approve the consent items?
Yep, I motion.
A second?
I'll second.
Okay, Lisa, again, please take a roll call vote.
Member Melissa Bates?
Approve.
Member Getz?
Approved.
Member Johnson?
Approved.
Vice Chair Boyd?
Approve.
Chair Jacobson Bates.
Approved. I'd just like to note that if there's anybody in the room or on listening online, that does indicate approval for the permit at a sign at 1673 Fur and another at 1680 Copenhagen. Okay, so now we're going to move on to public communications for non-agenda items. So something that's not already scheduled to be spoken about. Lisa, again, can you please introduce this item?
This section is intended to provide members of the public with the opportunity to address the committee on items not on the agenda. This section is limited to 30 minutes. Each speaker will be afforded 3 minutes and may speak only once. State law does not allow the committee to discuss or act on issues not on the agenda, except to briefly respond or to ask staff to follow up on such items.
Okay, again, we'll start with in-person public comments. I don't see anybody in the room. We're going to move on to Zoom. I don't see anybody with their hand raised there either. So now we're going to move on to discussion items. And staff, can you please introduce item 4A and provide the report?
Discussion and possible action to approve a sign permit and propose modifications to an approved sign plan for 1623 Mission Drive. The proposed project is categorically exempt from CEQA. And I'll go ahead and pull up the PowerPoint. All right. So 1623 Mission Drive, this is at the Park Place complex. There is already an approved sign plan there. The applicant is requesting to remove a directory sign that is there that's on the east side of the building that faces the parking lot. They're going to be replacing that with one of the two painted wall signs. That one is going to go in the same place as the existing directory sign. The second one will be on the interior walkway to the main entrance that faces Mission Drive. They're also proposing to add 2 display cases there, one on the interior walkway as well, and then one by the public restrooms, which is at the interior courtyard. That's going to be used to display different events for the tenants that are there, and it'll be changed out regularly. For both signs, there's nothing, or actually for the main painted wall sign, there won't be any business-specific information. It's just a general idea of what's in that complex. And the proposed signage that they submitted meets all of the regulations within 1113.8 of the Solvang Municipal Code. And this is exempt from CEQA. The applicant is also here if you guys have any questions for her.
Okay, any questions of staff from the committee at this time? All right, so we're going to go ahead and move on to public comment. And we're going to start with anyone in the room wishing to speak on it. I see the applicant, I believe, is in the room. Do you wish to make any comments about this? If so, please come on up to the mic, or if you're... Okay. And if we have questions, perhaps we can call you back for comment if necessary. At this point, we're going to also look on Zoom. There's nobody there again. So actually, we're going to close public comments. If we need to, we can reopen those and bring this item back to the committee for discussion. Before we start with lots of comments, I just kind of wanted to mention, having been on this committee for several years, that we have seen quite a few iterations of sign applications here as they've refined what they need and what works at the site. So it's not the first time we've been in the room and discussing the project. So with that kind of just a little historical context there, because I'm the only one who's participated in that. Committee, questions for staff?
I think it's a great idea. It's a tough building to find the tenants there. And for customers that have never been to Solvang, I think it really helps them lets them know what's in that shopping plaza, yeah. Otherwise, it's tucked in. I've been through it myself, looking in. Yeah, I think this is going to help a lot of customers.
I have a question for staff about the display, I'm trying to get the right terminology, the display case. Looking at our sign ordinances later in the discussion and the proposed, refinements and updates to that, does this case fit within the context of these new, proposed guidelines? And I guess that's a Raphael question.
The new guidelines shouldn't have any bearing on your decision this evening. You need to be based on what's existing in the code today.
And today, this is approved. So I'm just, for me, for context, and it doesn't, it's just kind of trying to get some understanding. I like the idea that it's going to be changing out with events relevant to the tenants there on site. I think that's important to make it fresh and stay looking up to date. All right, other questions?
I do have one question maybe for the owner there. On the display cases, are they lit up? Or are they not? They're not.
Yeah, there's no illumination on the display cases. Any other comments? Are we ready for a motion? Still reviewing a lot of the paperwork here. Would you like to make a motion, anybody?
I motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
A second.
Okay, at this point, I think we're ready for a roll call vote then.
Member Melissa Bates.
Approve.
Member Getz.
Approve.
Member Johnson.
Approved.
Vice Chair Boyd.
Approve.
Chair Esther Jacobson Bates.
Approved.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on to item 4B. And for this item, city staff will make a brief presentation. We're going to do this a little different. After the presentation, we're going to collect comments from the committee, and then after committee comments, we're going to open it up to the public comments, and each commenter can address both the DRC committee members and the staff, and we can answer questions and take the comments into consideration. Usually, there's a time limit. You can only speak once. This is a little bit more interactive if there are those who would like to make comments on it. So at this point, staff, will you please present item 4B?
Discussion and direction on color palette for design handbook for the Village District DD1. And I will get this PowerPoint up as well. All right. All right, so we're going to continue the conversation on color palettes that we began our discussions at the last DRC meeting on May 15th, 2025. We're still going to be focusing on the facade colors. What staff has done is we've grouped the colors together. We're going to go over eliminating those again. This is going to go into the draft design handbook. This is just as a summary of what we're doing for those that didn't attend or watch last month's meeting. This is going to serve as objective guidance for applicants and create consistency within the DD1 district and preserve the historic Danish character of Solvang. Our current effort is to establish the Danish aesthetic standards, and we're prioritizing the feedback that you guys gave us for the colors last time, which is the rich reds, ochres, pale creams, and muted earth tones, with the elimination of neon colors and the bright synthetic hues. And again, for tonight, we're going to focus on the facades and color groupings and continue the elimination of any colors that are appropriate for the village district.
All right, so at this point, as I said, we're going to do this a little bit different. So comments from the committee is where we're going to start. Anybody like to chime in?
Are we just going to start with the first palette and decide what you guys want to go? Should we just go through one color at a time and
Well,
decide?
let's kind of
Or how
start
you
with
wanna
the,
do that?
let's start with the concepts that we have here in our examples. I think that's, and then dive into the details.
Got it.
And I know, Rich, did you have a comment on that? You were looking at me.
No, I just was saying that we were looking at Sherwin-Williams and Dunn-Edwards colors, and I got all the colors for Dunn-Edwards, but all the colors that are on here are Sherwin-Williams. So we can get a color book from Sherwin-Williams, which I'm sure we can. I just didn't have the opportunity to do that. And these are as accurate as you can ever get for the color. But like I said, those are Dunn-Edwards colors. I got those from the Dunn-Edwards distributor in San Ynez.
So the intention is to whittle down what we got,
Colors.
and then we will actually specially order them from each company. So
Right.
we actually have a set to go off of, rather than trying to go through all of
They've
them.
given us those for our use. They don't need them returned or anything, so we can use those as long as we want.
Perfect. Great.
I
Thank you.
I think that's great, because this is the color.
True colors, yeah.
And as I'm looking at my color charts, and for those of you who are, in the room or online, there's significant variations, and being able to hone this down based upon colors that aren't true representation is extraordinarily difficult. For me, I'm finding it impossible to make informed decisions that will have a long shelf life here in Solvang.
Right.
And this is something that's so important that I need to know, is it this yellow? Is it that yellow? Is it the yellow on the screen? Is it the yellow on my computer screen? And we know from stumbling through and looking at it last time, I don't feel like we're ready to hone it down until we know what actual colors we're honing down, because we can limit this palette, but what colors are we actually selecting?
Okay.
That is my personal concern, because this is such an important aspect of the project. And I know that there's an urgency to complete this, but there's also an integrity to this project that I feel as though I don't have the proper information to make an informed decision with the color palettes that I have.
That's
And-
Sherwin-Williams.
Yeah, and what we really need is to have that color, the actual paint swatch color, and then use our lights to look at it in the interior and exterior conditions. And, maybe go outside. I like to go out and walk around with it. So that is my hesitation in moving forward, not in moving forward with the project and the concept, but rather not having accurate, the tools aren't all there to continue the project quite yet.
I've got to agree. If you look at just the glittery yellow color, the first one on the page, and then the first
Yeah.
same color
It's-
here,
It's different.
they're way different.
They're way different.
And as you go across that top row, they're all considerably different, just in that top row. So I kind of agree. I think we need to know exactly what the color is that we're talking about, because this is going to be Solvang for a long time.
Is this something perhaps that we should do as a group, separate, and then come back to the
Well,
table
I can get
and get the other book?
Sherwin-Williams paint chips like those. Like I said, the Dunn Edwards distributor was more than happy to just give me that.
Right.
So I'll go wherever the Sherwin-Williams closest guy is and get that, so we can see exactly what glittery yellow Sherwin-Williams 7125 really looks like.
Right.
And perhaps this is something that could be a kind of reference copy that's available in advance at at your office at planning, that we could come by and look at, maybe check out for 24 hours or something, and actually be able to look at and make notes individually. Or I don't know if there's the capacity to put together 5 palettes so that we could all, look at it. But until we have a true color representation, this exercise is not, in my mind, going to create valid results.
Right. And like you said, we should probably walk, get out in the sun, see what it is, just to verify.
And then kind of one of the things that I like to do and have done when we've had other paint chips is go to buildings that I think are like a really good example, and maybe that's what color it is, and I'll go there and go, wow, that was not even close.
Correct.
You know how it is when you paint, in the daylight versus in the twilight versus in the winter storm. It's such different
Huge difference.
colors. So at least we need to start with an accurate representation of the color, because there's already room for lots of variations, even when you have a true sample. So I guess with that in mind, I could entertain a motion to table this
Well, I have-
after we have more discussion with the public.
I have some questions. It is on. Yeah, sorry. I have questions about the process. So are we picking the actual color and then, so is it on the style guide, is it going to be Sherwin-Williams FA 5D, or is it just a suggestion? I mean, how granular is this process, Raphael?
It's not supposed to be granular. So, again, what we're looking for is whittling down in order to provide a further refined product. No more, no less. It's not actually, there's no selection this evening. There's no, this is what we're going to move forward with. It's whittling down so we can provide you the next step and then continue to work on the document. I mean, you got a lot of yellows right now. So
Yeah.
I mean, if things look similar to the naked eye, then so be it. And just sort of as a reminder, the intention of this is to give businesses a start. If they want to propose a color that's not here, that's okay.
Right.
And so, and I just always want to continue to remind that. So while I understand your concern, Chairperson, again, these are a lot, and those books are huge because and thank you for getting those. We wanted to. The intention was to whittle down what we can so that we can then move on to the chip set. That's actually, again, if you go through the plethora of colors, a lot of those colors are already out simply based on the discussions we had the last time and go around. So again, we're just looking to whittle things down, but not approve. But again, trying to move that target. It's a large target and trying to move it smaller and smaller and smaller. But I mean, if you want city staff to go get chips for all these, then we'll go do that. But if there are colors that look similar, yes, I understand. The medium is not perfect, but quite frankly, neither are the chips. Ultimately, in the end, it's the building, and even then, there are so many factors that go into it. Location in terms of a building facade, and if it's sun facing, shade facing, is there shadows on a tree? There's a lot to it. So we are just looking to whittle down.
Yeah, and is it reflecting the red building across the street on the yellow one? Yeah, there's very many factors.
And what's the building made out of?
Yes.
And to address the question about a non-Sherwin-Williams color, right under the color is a hex code, and that can be used with different companies, and they'll match whatever the name.
Okay, so that's what the under number is.
Yeah, because again, the intention is we want to ensure that those paint companies that are local to us, they kind of get the first crack at it, but not everyone can afford the high premium paint. So again, as Lisa had mentioned, having that hex code is the biggest key because they're able to then color match as best as possible. Vice versa, it's I myself in my own home project, I used the Home Depot colors. I used Behr colors.
Yep.
Ultimately, they actually used Dunn Edwards. So, but they did the match exactly to what was our original color specification. So, providing as much information as possible to ultimately, again, the intention of the guidebook and the handbook is ultimately to assist property owners into making decisions, but not ultimately making a decision for them.
Got it.
Right.
And I think once the handbook is done and, this process is whittled down, that we saw on the screen, you were showing some examples of some of the buildings in town. I think the handbook having pictures of buildings that are good examples, having picture in Solvang and in Denmark,
Yes.
will provide inspiration. Because I don't know about the rest of you, but if I'm going to paint my house, I'm looking at everybody else's paint. And when I
Right.
see a combination I like,
Yes.
and that's actually how I pick the colors of my house. My painter drove right up the driveway of somebody I have no idea who it was and asked him what colors the paint was.
Yep.
And
Pinterest does so well.
that, yeah,
Yes.
it does work well.
I feel like we have a lot of information and we can, take another pass at this based on what we have in front of us. And if there's anything that we kind of coalesce around wanting to remove, I think that we still have enough information to proceed on eliminating, not necessarily, adding to the style book, but if someone hates Laurel Pink, then, we can discuss that. And then, Raphael, are these just for the walls, not trim, right?
Well, the intention is to, again, that's going to be up to the designer to figure out how to create those color combos. And then ultimately in the end, however we, as written today, we had sort of placeholders written in. So it's written in the code that the colors can be approved by city staff. if that's how the DRC feels that we're okay with proceeding that way, then so be it. If the DRC wishes to recommend an amendment to say it continues to go to the DRC, then we'll carry that amendment forward to the city council to amend that specific section and remove that language. Because again, as a reminder, while things are codified, we can always amend the code. I feel like I'm a broken record when I have to mention that.
Would this be the appropriate time to see if there's any community input and kind of start the open dialogue? And I see one person in the room who doesn't wish to speak on this topic, if I understand that head shake. Do I see anybody on Zoom I don't see anybody who's there. So I guess it remains for committee discussion here. So for me, it's really hard to even eliminate because I don't know what I'm eliminating.
Okay.
Because there's a
I
lot,
would
there's too
prefer-
much.
I would prefer to defer until we got the actual chips myself.
Knowing that there's too many colors here, and knowing that we also, I think you were asking about trim, Melissa.
Right.
And the half timbers will be something different. Please step up to the mic and identify yourself. Lynn?
Hi, Lynn Peterson. And is there a copy of this color format that the public can see?
Yes.
And where would I find that?
Under the agenda, there is
On
and
the city website.
yes. So when you look at the agenda for the DRC meeting, and I think part of the challenge is what you see on your screen for the color palette is probably different than what I see on my screen.
Yeah.
Right.
And is different from the printout on one type of paper versus another. And that's why this conversation is taking place now. But yes, all the colors.
So we can at least see the colors and actually go pick out the paint chips ourselves.
Yes.
See what it looks
Correct,
like.
at this time.
Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, the ultimate intention is going to be, and you can, again, this is a free flow, so.
Yeah, you can stay up
You can
if
stay
you
up
wanna.
if you'd like.
Yeah, it's different from
yeah.
traditional meetings.
So the ultimate intention is we're doing this step by step. So the reality was going to be, you whittle down the color, and then we're going to start drafting this up, but at least place it on our major projects list so that people can see it. We most certainly can start that page now and have the colors up there so people can see it. So again, but ultimately it needs to remain that it's draft form, and so any items that come before you or the public, there's still no adopted color scheme. So that's the one caveat to caution and throw to it. So like very similar to the one item where you asked, well, how does it conform to the guidelines of the future ones? I don't know, because they're in the middle of being crafted. So I don't. And even then, we can't go into the future and try to.
Right, and I
craft
will
what's there.
be revisiting that when we get to that part of the agenda. So I guess we have options tonight, clearly. One of those options is to,
Table.
pick specific things. One of them is to eliminate certain things, and the other is to table it to, I would presume, till next meeting. And I have to say that I have had some feedback in the community from members who were interested, and I told them that, great, come be part of the discussion, that it'll be more refined at a future meeting than it is tonight. And we do want their input.
Okay.
So do I have a motion or?
Well, there's no motion that's needed.
Okay.
So.
All right.
I guess we kind of need direction, and so if you want us to just pursue color chips based on what we have down, then we will do that, and then we'll continue to discuss this at the next meeting.
That would be, do I feel like we have a consensus with that direction?
I think so.
And I think
think
with an additional comment to staff is that you've had offers of assistance in procuring some of these color charts. If there's a way that we can be actively assisting with the process, please let us know. Because
I'd
we,
be happy to go get the Sherwin-Williams colors. And you can obviously have these for use.
Yeah, again, while it's appreciated, we're just, there's a lot of colors in there. And so
Right.
we want to be able to control that and feed it into a system to say, okay,
They're organized by color, number, and letter and so forth. They're really
Right.
easy to track down. If you look at, SW 7125, you can come up with that chip in a matter of 30 seconds.
So it's up to staff to let us know if we can be of assistance with this. And then we would request that you bring this back as soon as we have paint samples that are consistent with what is on the color chart from the paint manufacturer.
sounds good.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, and I'm sort of the dissenting voice because I feel like we have an opportunity to work through some of this tonight and at least narrow down some of the choices. I'm not sure that having the actual paint chips is going to make a huge difference in my opinion. I mean, I do have, like I say, things I like and things that I feel, I would love to hear input from the other members. But if you want to wait to have more things to
Valid.
work with, that's fine. But I just feel like we kind of do have at least an opportunity to
We
to
do.
move forward.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to have a separate meeting to go over this, maybe in the afternoon when it's not quite so late, as that workshop that we had, a month or so ago, whenever that was, a couple months ago, I guess now. If we had the color chips and the committee wanted to get together, I'd be happy to
Wait,
do that.
you're stepping into a Brown Act issue.
Yeah.
You're
Well-
stepping into a Brown Act issue by doing that. You can't meet with an entire committee and is a serial committee. And that's sort of the point of having,
Even in a workshop, similar
Well-
to what we had before.
it is, but again, these are notice to the public.
Yeah.
And workshops, again, while they're great, go do a workshop, that essentially adds more time for us in terms of processing, prepping, and providing the materials that, because we kind of have, in terms of our processes of getting an agenda out, writing a staff report, all that is sort of dialed in based on the deadlines that have already been predetermined. Well, 6 months ago, you throw in a workshop. Now we have additional items to go through. Now we have to do additional, media noticing, and you may just get the same exact crowd as
Just
what
the
you get
thought,
today.
yeah, just
I get it. I want to just be open about, workshops take time and effort to do on top of what we're already doing. So these are noticed meetings. So if you feel compelled that you really need the chips, then so be it. We'll order them and we'll continue this discussion for the next meeting in the same style format. But again, we felt as city staff we got a direction based on the night before or based on the previous meeting and in hopes to whittle down some more. But if the committee doesn't want to whittle down, that's fine by us too.
So regarding the workshop, I also think it'd be important to have a workshop. However, I think we can satisfy, well, that's the wrong word. We can lighten the load and have a kind of workshop by running the conversation in the same way that we're doing it tonight. So rather than having a time limit and we can't engage with the public making comments, we can have a kind of workshop-ish format during the course of our meeting. And I do know that there is a lot of interest in this. I also know that the Wednesday night meeting caught a few people by surprise. I got to admit, including me, because I saw Raphael and I said, "See you Thursday," and he said, "Nope, Wednesday." So, as much as we know that the city business and property owners are very interested in this, we also know that it's very atypical to fill the room when a decision is in process and being made. It's after the decision is made and the implications of it are felt is when the room fills up. So all of that said, Melissa, are you comfortable waiting for because I have a hard time eliminating anything based on these samples.
Okay.
I think we should be able to just go get our own palette at any, paints, I mean, I have them at my house, and take it upon ourselves to do it ahead of time.
And I'm fine with
It
that,
would
too.
help with time for you
It-
guys.
it would.
We can do that, definitely.
It would, but, and again, if the fun thing, or the good thing about it, ordering what we have already, because again, it is a matter of compiling the information first and foremost. Now that we have it's a lot easier to now just quickly you say, we just need these colors, please send us these, and please send us 6 total. And
Yeah.
Okay.
we get it shipped out, so.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, I'd definitely like to do that, and
And the other thing too is it does allow us to open up the portal in terms of our website, to open up this as a major projects and add this as the first step to say, hey, these are what we're proposing as color palettes. And that way we can continue a little more dialogue. And again, understanding that today is a Wednesday, not a Thursday. There's another event going on in the city. I don't coordinate these things in December, so and this is an ongoing discussion. City staff has already sort of said this entire summer we'll be talking about this item.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's this, if we don't have any items, which right now we don't have any items for July, this is an item.
yeah.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
And again, I appreciate that, and I think more than anybody sitting up here, I can't wait to have this color palette defined.
Right.
But all that said, we want it to be done and done right. This is so important to maintaining Solvang's Danish aesthetic, and we already see that as being the main economic driver, but also being impacted by changes in our community. So staff, you've got your direction.
I just want to
Yeah.
clarify one thing.
Yeah.
The reason we don't have a full book of Sherwin-Williams colors is because these were taken directly from the books that we referenced at the last meeting.
Okay.
For the historical Danish colors. So that's the reason that we have these specific colors.
Okay.
Yes. And understood, because some of those aren't real standard colors. Yeah, yeah. And that's all the more reason why having the actual, because you saw us at the last meeting, it's like, not that one, but that one.
That was
and-
fun.
Yeah. So it is a challenge.
So to sort of continue the progress, obviously we were hoping to whittle down so we can continue on moving. Does the committee just want to focus on the colors only and then bring back in August, say, a much more completed rendition of what the handbook's going to look like? Or do you actually want a portion flavor of the handbook at the same time? Or is that just too much information overload?
By the handbook, can you be more clear as to what you're specifically referencing?
So the handbook, again, as sort of this reminder of what the handbook actually is its interpretation of the codified objective standards. So essentially, the thought is to give you just a portion of it and how it's supposed to look in terms of pictures that are inserted, additional assistance in interpreting what the objective design design guideline means, and just sort of show you how the format's supposed to be.
I actually think that would be helpful, because that would address things like Melissa, in your question. A lot of that would be answered by seeing, kind of the beginnings of a handbook. Is that within staff's capacities?
Oh, their capacity.
Well, let me rephrase that. And the capacities related to your time.
Well, the idea was that we would whittle down and get the chips and then give those to you as a part. So again, it's continuing dialogue. I've already pretty much planned. We are taking this all the way through, probably either for sure August, but if it bleeds into September, so be it. But again, the intention is to get it right. So I think we can produce kind of very similar to your next item, where you only get a portion of it, and then that starts to set you up for the next portion of it.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think with the design handbook, the pictures that go with it are going to be so important to support the words and the color samples.
It pretty much is, and that's the intention, is to be able to say, oh, okay, well, what is a half timber? Well, here's a half timber. Here's what the objective standards tell you what it is, but
Right.
here's the picture. Here's how you measure it. And the idea is to say also a guideline. And so the guideline helps the user to say, okay, ultimately, and this is how we intend this to be. And then again, the objective standard is that it's objective, but at least gives you a rhyme and reason of what we're looking for.
Perfect.
Yeah, and I think some of that is picked up from the existing guidelines and some of it from the general plan, too. Some of the verbiage.
Verbiage, yes,
Yeah.
yeah. But again, that the intention is that the property owner and or designer picks it up and is able to then interpolate what we're asking for.
Yeah, and again, it's kind of like your inspiration
Yes.
board or beginnings of kind of thing, and that will go a long way.
Some people need that visual, so that's a good thing.
I do.
Yeah, some people need the visual, so it's good.
Yeah, and it helps explain why these standards and
Are in place.
requirements are existing.
Yes.
And good examples of it.
Correct.
Okay, so let's see. That is item 4B. I think staff, any other concerns or questions? And as far as public comment, I guess we better close that now. And we've all had our kind of interactive discussion. And any other questions of us before we move on? Otherwise, we're going to go on to 4C. Okay. Item for this staff, or for this item, will staff please make a presentation?
Discussion and direction on Title 11, Chapter 13, sign ordinance amendments.
All right, thanks, Lisa. So this is very similar to the handbook. We're going to be rolling this out to you in chunks. So bear with us. So what you got in your package is sort of the draft first cut of the first 8 sections of the proposed sign ordinance. So hence why we're calling it Part 1. So just to give a little project background, city staff did receive direction on proceeding with sign ordinance amendments on March 13th, 2025. This is a workshop that was alluded to in the earlier item. So again, we have commenced that work effort, and these are based on comments and feedbacks received from the workshop. So we will be providing the sign ordinance in 2 parts. Part 1 is the permit processing and temp signs, which is what you're seeing tonight. Part 2 is the permanent signage and non-conforming signs that will hopefully be in July. So again, trying to just bring it in chunks because sign ordinance is pretty complicated, and we'll get into those in a minute of its complication. So the basis for amendments are streamlining regulations to make it easier for businesses to get signs approval. So that's in line with the city council goals for this fiscal year. Clarify the regulations that are currently in place. Create content neutral regulations. So this is actually new to our sign ordinance because our last major overhaul of our sign ordinance happened in 2010. So it's been quite some time. The other big one is maintain aesthetic quality because, again, signs are important to our community and to our businesses, but at the same time, we need to maintain our aesthetic quality, particularly in our village, and then create a set of objective standards. So very similar to this term of objective standards is able for city staff to quantify signage and give the decision makers, whether it is you, the DRC, the Planning Commission, or ourselves, the same standards over and over again to ensure that we're properly sizing signs. So one of the big issues that our sign ordinance has is the ability to remain content neutral. So it's this idea of commercial versus non-commercial, and the ordinance needs to remain content neutral, which is why you see in your first cut, there are some sign types that you're like, what is that? And so, again, our aim is to avoid the regulation of the message or the subject matter. So in our existing sign ordinance today, it discusses substantially a lot of the message of the sign. We can't do that. And we just haven't been enforcing it over the last 2 years. Again, content-based regulation sign is subject to strict scrutiny. And the idea is this in the government's interest? Is this in the city of Solvang's best interest to regulate the message? And then there's a whole host of free speech issues. So again, we have 2 images here. You have the non-commercial message sign that says we support the troops. You see them all the time. That's it's non-commercial. It doesn't advertise a business, but it is a very much protected First Right Amendment to have. Second picture is the famous Eat at Joe's. So it's a sign. Whether you like it or not, it's a person sign if you really want to think about it. But how do we sort of balance all those together? So diving into the draft sign ordinance, and again, it's draft, it's not finalized. The intention of this is to solicit input, particularly from our members here at the DRC as well as the public. And so you will see things morph as we get these changes go along. So the first section is sections 1 and 2. It's the purpose section, so that's heavily revamped from our original ordinance. It's the reason and rationale for having a sign ordinance. It's why we have an interest in it. The second one is the applicability section, sort of where our sign ordinance applies, ensuring that non-commercial message signs, as shown earlier and as described earlier, are allowed. And again, this is the freedom of speech. And so what that means is if you have a permitted commercial sign, say you have a wall sign, and you feel really strong about an election or a free speech topic, you can swap out your sign for that same exact size. You're allowed to do that. That is within your constitutional right. That is within, given, case law allows to do that. So again, solidifies that in applicability. Ensuring that protest and other signage is allowed. So while we are very tight with signs, we need to respect people's First Amendment rights to free speech, and that includes protesting. So again, trying to ensure that we strike that balance between a commercial and non-commercial message. And then finally, providing flexibility for similar sign types. So there is language in there that says, hey, if there's a sign type that's not identified, then city staff, the decision maker, what we use review authority as the language, they can make the decision to align to what's closest and then give an answer from there. So the third section is exempt signs. So this section carries over actually quite a bit of stuff that we've exempted out, but we've combined sort of some categories. So typically city, county, state, and schools are exempt from our sign ordinances. So a school district runs on its own. We think so they're their own little entity, so we don't regulate them. Official city event signs, so stuff for Yule Fest, Danish Days, et cetera. Anything that's a city-sponsored event, will essentially exempt ourselves from getting a permit. Business information signs is actually a new one that's in there, simply because all businesses have these information signs, whether it's credit card acceptance, Bitcoin, hours of operation, et cetera. That's considered a business information sign. So in this, it's written to, currently up to 4 square feet. It most certainly can be reduced. It can be increased, but 4 is about the money point of where you want that information sign to be. Decorations with specific timeframes. So currently in our ordinance, again, we're trying to be really nondescript. We can't say a Halloween decoration or a Christmas decoration. So instead we just say decorations in the time event period, but allowing for those decorations to be up during a time frame. Signs affixed to vehicles, wraps, magnets, etc. That's really dictated by the California Vehicle Code, so we don't touch those. Non-commercial art murals, it sort of solidifies that non-commercial art murals are exempt from a sign permit. Now we can always remove that and have them required to have a sign permit. City staff recommends you don't enter into that arena for various reasons, particularly when it comes to free speech and other things. You can always quantify sizes, et cetera, of what murals are going to be, but murals are just so subjective when it comes to art. Typically, we don't want to go there. So city staff is at least recommending that non-commercial art murals be exempt from getting a sign permit. And then finally, non-commercial message signs up to 3 square feet in all zones. So basically, what is that? That's your run-of-the-mill yard sign that can advertise a non-commercial message. So pick your flavor of non-commercial message, whether it's you support the troops or your faith ideology, or you want Taylor Swift and Selena Gomez to run for president in 2028. Don't matter. We don't care. We'll exempt it. You don't need a permit. It's funny that you laugh now, but you'd be amazed how many calls we get after the election that people still have their signs up. So again, we need to protect free speech as much as we can and lighten our load. So So section 4 discusses prohibited signs. A lot of these are all carryovers from our current sign ordinance. So off-site signs, billboards. So off-site signs are really just a great example of that is someone has a sign, an A-frame sign, but it's 2 blocks away. You can't do that. Abandoned signs. Those are just signs for businesses that are abandoned. Again, that's also a carryover. A new one, which I'm shocked that we don't have this, is, and I know businesses don't do this very often, but we just want to make sure to say we're not going to allow this as illuminated awning signs, and there's a image of what that is. Outdoor decorations used as attention-getting devices. Now, I talked about decorations earlier. It's one thing to do Yule Fest, Christmas, Halloween decorations, 4th of July. It's another thing to throw on a bunch of balloons on an A-frame sign or some banner to really get attention to someone. So that we would not allow. Roof signs, that's actually, again, a carryover from our existing code, even though we do have roof signs in the town today. We can also, very much based on the DRC's decision, we can take roof signs out and turn it into a special consideration sign. So that's something, again, we're pretty flexible about that. Snipe signs, you see them all around town. They advertise all types of fun, garage sales. They're on our utility poles. They're everywhere. We try to make sure not to have them. Inflatable signs, feather flags, signs in the right of way. That's what ROW stands for. Signs that emit sounds and odors. Again, just making sure we're covering our bases. So we don't need signs that make noises or emulate or have a funky smell that goes to them. Again, laugh now. Mobile signs. Cabinet signs is a new one. So again, those are what we considered wall and can signs. So those are just those basic box cabinets. We can do better. We should make our businesses do better. So that's why we're eliminating those. And then billboards, that's another carryover. So pictorially, what do these things look like? Starting from left to right, the sign on the left is an abandoned sign. That middle that says Schmidt's Bakery, that's actually your illuminated awning sign. I don't think that's quite Solvang appropriate, so we want to eliminate those. The snipe signs are sitting there sort of in that middle. Our famous little inflatable man telling you whispering through the wind, not allowed either. Feather flags are the final picture on the right-hand side. Here we have a picture of an A-frame sign, a plastic A-frame sign at that, with balloons, again, attention getting. As mentioned earlier, the cabinet sign is sitting there on the wall, and we can do better, so let's just go ahead, brown out and eliminate it. And then the signage that's affixed to a vehicle. And this is actually a picture I took, because I dealt with this in my career at a different locale. And then again, running through prohibited signs, electronic signs, that it will include neon signs as well. Those would be outright banned. The sign in the middle is a roof mounted sign. And then finally, off-site billboard sign is on the right-hand side. So kind of got a gist of the prohibited signs. Section 5 deals with application and processing. So we are actually proposing to amend our sign types and processing for those. So we're looking at 3 flavor of signs. The first one is administrative sign permits. The second one is what we have today, sign permits. And we also have sign programs, but we're going to expand that program altogether. So the idea is, again, in line with trying to speed things up. At a staff level, city staff can approve temporary signs, limited duration signs, the relocation of signs. So that means a sign that's been previously approved by the DRC or the BAR. They can, as long as it's the same size, same manner, we can approve that. Residential subdivisions, and then permanent signs that are change outs, suspended signs or awning signs. So again, this is these low-hanging fruits, assuming that we can come to an agreement of how these suspended sign and awning signs, objective standard-wise, would look. The idea is those are the easy signs to pick off. These are some signs that, especially for businesses that are trying to move in quickly, those are the first that are being able to manufactured, and we can approve those at a staff level versus going to the DRC. Again, love to hear your comments on that, but it's trying to just sort of split, rather than going one way, I know city staff in 2019 attempted to take all the signs back to city staff level approvals, but this kind of sort of splits that difference, understanding that signs are still important to our community and for community input. So the sign permit, those are what we have today. So that's basically all other signs not covered by admin signage, sign permits. The DRC is to approve those, so we're talking our wall signs or our freestanding signs, so the sort of the big fish signs. And then if someone is seeking an exception to our temporary signs or other exceptions, they go to you. So again, the whole point is if we're not looking for if you're not seeking exemption, then city staff can approve it. But the minute you're kind of outside that box, it's got to go to public hearing. It's got to go to y'all. Sign programs are currently in our code. It's actually currently only reserved for shopping centers and office parks. We want to revise that to actually also now allow our smaller tenant shops here in the village, and again, give them a little bit more leeway to be creative with how they get people to those back, areas of their squares or their back tenants. But again, it needs to go through y'all first and come up with a little bit more creative solutions. So section 6 discusses measurements. So again, defines sign area, addresses our double-sided signs. So those are technically your suspended signs. Discusses the height of freestanding signage, the measurements for building frontage. Again, it basically gives us the tools of how we're going to measure these things. So a great example is our current code is not very clear. It talks about dominant and secondary frontage. That's complicated. Why don't we just call it frontage and be done with it? So if you're a corner building, you're allowed, signs on both corners, but you still have to do, you still have a total amount of signage that you can't surpass. And if you're surpassing that, then now we're talking a sign program and an exception, and then it needs to come to you with a rhyme and reason of why they need the exception. We include side design standards as well as support detail standards and new illumination standards. I found it, as we were going through these, we actually have no illumination standards. So basically we are introducing the foot candle standard, which is basically how brightly lit a specific area is. It tells you how much light actually falls on the surface and not how much light is emitted from the source. And really this tool is used to reduce light pollution. So that's a huge topic here. We are all about the dark skies. Why don't we put this tool that's sitting out there forever and a day actually into our tool belt and use a foot candle as a measurement? It is very much an industry standard. And for those that don't know, one foot candle is 1 foot. So you'd think it makes sense. But again, really this comes into play for sure when we have businesses that are facing residential properties. And as hopefully we get more residences in the village, it will start coming into play there. So we want to make sure that standard is set. So the next two sections talk about temporary and limited duration signs. And so I'm going to break this down for everyone. I just want to pause. Do we have any questions on the first sections before we go into the nitty gritty?
Okay, so you were talking about some items that I didn't see in our packet tonight. Am I correct? You're talking about sections and...
They're there. They're in attachment A.
Oh, they're in there. I saw lighting's in here?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and again, it's just it's the standard of how we measure it. So it's establishing that standard. The next meeting we'll talk about what is the actual standard for those wall signs.
Okay, and I'm getting, because you're calling it sections that differ from the way it's presented here. So I see what's happening here. In your presentation, section 5 is,
Section 11.13.5.
yeah.
Yep.
Okay, got it. It's dinner time.
No worries. Any other questions?
No, we're coming back to discussion about all this.
We definitely are.
Yeah.
So section 7, it deals with this new topic that does not exist in our sign code. It's called limited duration signs. So again, if you recall many slides back when I talked about commercial, non-commercial message and content neutrality, this is where content neutrality comes from. So a limited duration sign for all intents and purposes are real estate signs. but we can't call them real estate signs. So the max sign area is 3 square feet, one per property or per common lot, 6 foot high max, located on private property, must be removed within 7 days after the event or purpose. So again, the event is a house that's on sale or house for rent. The purpose is once it's rented or sold, it comes down in 7 days. So yeah, it's it's that simple. Additional signage is allowed during elections, so that's we wrote in that caveat because again, election season brings out the best in all of us. So we need to make sure that people express their opinions. In all other zones, so these are all other zones that aren't residential. We're actually increasing the size of signage allowed because it kind of makes sense simply because you're talking now commercial properties, those properties with larger street frontages. Areas that are exempt from this are parks and open space, so there will be no types of signs allowed in those. Except, of course, if it's a city sign, then we're exempt from our own. We can put our own up. But again, 32 square feet, one per business, 6 foot max, located on private property. And then again, the same thing. If a property is for rent or sale, after the event has occurred, it's got to come down. So, and then the same caveat applies during our election season. We value everyone's opinion. So trying to be equal, we'll up the size of additional signage allowed. The last item of limited duration signs are signs on poles, and those are the sticks that you see on the ground. And this is extremely controversial item today. So today there's a code section that says community and civic signs shall be approved by the city manager. But that's all it tells us. Doesn't tell us how long, doesn't tell us how big, doesn't tell us nothing. We're looking to change that. So it will be cut with a specific section. The max size sign is 48 square feet in the PI or the public zone. So again, if you're in the public zone, you get a little bit more square footages under the time, place, manner. 40 square feet in all other non-residential zones. We're actually looking to prohibit the use of said signs during Danish Days and Yule Fest. We don't want as much as we're all competitive, or as much as we're all residents here in the Santa Ynez Valley, our Parks and Rec department has had some heartburn with us approving signs for other events during Yule Fest. We want to draw people here. We want to advertise our events that are within the city of Solvang for that specific time period. And so we're, again, falling under time, place, manner, we want to carve out to say, look, if you're going to do a limited duration pole sign during these events, they gotta, we just know. If it's, it's got to be our event. This is our bread and butter. If there are other events we need to add, so be it. But that's what we're looking for. 8 feet high max in the public zone, 6 feet in others. And again, the same stipulation, located on private property. In this instance, we've made it very clear that if you're posting these along Highway 246, you need a Caltrans encroachment permit. Many people don't get those. We don't control Mission Drive, Highway 246. So we get a lot of, well, how come they're doing it? Well, it's Caltrans right away. That's all we can really say because we don't have the regs that are in there. And this would hopefully help solve that. And again, very similar to the other signs, must be removed 2 days after the purpose of the event. So again, and most organizations are really good about this, but it provides sort of that streamline of regulations that at this point in time, we don't really have. So moving on to Section 8, temporary signs. So again, these are very hot topics, particularly for those that are in the village. And this is based on our discussions at the workshop, city council, et cetera. Currently, right now, A-frame signs are just not allowed, period. We're looking to change that based on the feedback that we received. So allowing it one per business. Max sign area is 6 square feet, again, may be reduced, so we can strip that down if we need to. height of no more than 3.5 feet. The biggest one is location. So, if we're going to allow this, we have to set parameters. So at this point, cannot be located in the right of way. Can't be on our sidewalk, can't be in the public street, got to be on private property. And if you're going to locate this on private property, it's got to be within 5 feet of your primary door, period. Not 10, not 20, not 30, 5. And that's, some of these that had this regulation had it at 10. But again, we just don't want these to proliferate everywhere. No illumination, because there are folks that will take advantage of that. So we want to be very clear. We don't want these lit up. They need to be removed daily. Under the spirit of time, place, manner, solid wood or metal frames only, no plastic. And by solid wood, that's no bamboo, we can really, if we're going to allow these and you want the aesthetic, now is the time to really hit home what type of aesthetic you want. One thing I did toy with, is the language is not here, and Dave Fleischman might hit me virtually because this might be an enforcement nightmare. But one thing to remember about A-frame signs is that, and the whole purpose of A-frame signs is to draw customers in. And the purpose of that is to advertise something special. Not just that you're open, not just that you have coffee. I can tell by your sign that you have coffee. So the idea is, do we craft language requiring a sign face change every week, every 30 days? Because again, time, place, manner. I don't care what the message says. I just want to make sure it changes. And I think potentially crafting such a language, and I've tried looking this up, and no one's really gone there before. So that's why I really say Dave might smack me. But if it's...
I'll smack you gently here. So here's the problem. If we require a change every X days, all they need to do is change one letter, one word, erase a portion of it, and then they're technically compliant. So it forces code enforcement staff to take pictures, make repeated visits to the property to determine whether or not there has been a change to the sign. And I think it just puts a lot of work and burden on staff. So the question is there a way to moderate that additional burden and still effectuate the kind of change and allow the signs in general? And I don't know where that middle ground lies, but that is the countervailing issue that I think Raphael is referring to.
That is correct. But it's an idea. And again, our purpose is to hear loud and clear, our business owners want these, but at the same token, we need to protect the aesthetic, and we need to go back to what is the purpose of the A-frame sign? Well, the purpose of the A-frame sign typically was to draw me in to tell you that you had a lunch special, or you're running a dress sale, or your cookies are 5 for 1 today, only in the afternoon. Cool. So let Dave and I cook maybe, or give us some thoughts and feedback, and maybe we might go in the kitchen and craft something up. So A-frame signs outside the village, it's the same as the village minus the materials requirement, plain and simple. If you want the materials requirement in there for the entire city, that makes life really easy for us. But again, kind of understanding that those areas that are outside of the city are more frequented by our residents versus visitors, and they don't have, again, it maybe being a little bit more relaxed, knowing that they're not in the village, or just say, hey, we want it uniform throughout the entire city. Either you play by these rules or you don't, and we're okay with that too. So banner signs. So again, this was another big one, and this is looking back at the 2010 stuff. This was extremely hot topic back then. So how do we accommodate? We took a shot, and if the shot missed, let me know, because I'm not married to this, and I'm not married to any of this. This is just our idea of how do we accommodate businesses, yet how do we continue to maintain the aesthetic. So the idea is allow for one per business. Again, shrunk down to 20 square feet. I think right now, I want to say it's 10 or under right now, and it's 10 days, up to 30 days before the business opens and 14 days after the business opens, and that's it. And then outside the village, you can increase it to 32. Location's got to be on the building, can't be on a pole, can't be on a fence, can't be. It's got to be literally on the building, not above the first story. And again, we can put it to where it doesn't cover windows, or it's got a time, place, manner. How do we affix those? The idea is 7 days up, twice per year. Not too hard. And again, the idea for the banner is if you have a special event, if you have an anniversary sale, you have some sort of special thing to advertise, then you're able to do it for that one time, 2 times a year. And again, I'm not married to the 2 times a year. We can do it 4 times a year. It's just how much burden do you want to put on city staff to track these all the time? And again, the duration outside the village changes 14 days up to 4 times a year. So double the time, now we're talking once a quarter. So again, we would be okay with, 7 days, 4 times a year. And again, it's up to the business owner to figure that out. And we can write in, it can't be 7 consecutive days and another 7 consecutive days, we can write it in 7 days up and at a minimum needs to be down for 30 days. Those things we can add in so that there will be people that will take advantage of this and say, well, I'm doing it for seven days straight, but for, 2 weeks straight. Okay, well, sure. But we can always, again, add those time, place, manner things. The final one is temp signs. So these are signs that aren't permanently etched into the window. So they're either attached, they're hanging on there, they're glued, they're painted, they're sort of resting, up to 25% of the surface area. Again, we don't do these very often, so maybe there may not have been a need for a code, and we just don't even want to do temp window signs, and we're okay. However, there do people that do color their windows for, they paint them for the holidays, so that's why it's kind of nice to have the surface area up to 25%. We can also recognize under time, place, manner that, say, Yule Fest will allow 75% to be painted. Again, giving that sort of time, place, manner, but it's equal to everybody. And we call Yule Fest as a special city event, and we can call that out, or we'll get, Dave to help craft the language to make it so, to make it as content neutral as possible. So what are your tasks for tonight's meeting? I know this is a lot of information because a lot of it was a lot of our technical stuff, including the permit procedures, but provide us comments. We're seeking direction or modifications and ask questions. And again, this is the first meeting. We'll take this again in July. And if we need to, we'll take it again in August. And so the intention is to really get a good dialed in code from you guys, the board members. And then we will actually present it back out to Planning Commission and back out to City Council. And then once we sort of get a buy-in from everybody, then we will formally take it to Planning Commission and formally take it to City Council for adoption. So this is going to take time, but again, we want to get this right.
Okay. Thank you, Raphael. It says here that was your brief presentation. So at this point, we're going to kind of do like the other items. We'll collect comments up here amongst the committee. Of course, we can ask staff questions, and then we invite the public in the room and on Zoom and to come up, ask questions, and we can kind of have a little bit more of a workshop approach in the sense that you won't be limited to one speaking opportunity or one amount of time. And then after the city staff and the DRC has answered questions and taken into considerations, then we'll move on from there. So let's start with comments. And I feel that we kind of just need to walk through this document. And if it is permissible, I would like to allow our public to engage at any time on the subject that, on the item in the proposed regulations that we're addressing at that moment, if that's permissible. Can we do it that way?
I don't see why not.
Okay, I think I saw a head going up and down on Zoom there. Thank you. So let's just kind of start at the top. I guess we start with item 1, purpose. I feel as though we've, the purpose, I don't know if anybody has anything that they want to add to that or comments on the item 1. And 2 is applicability. And then we get down into number 3, the exempt signs. And stop me if anytime if you have comments. I'm just kind of going through
I
this.
do have a question.
Absolutely.
Raphael, you mentioned free speech, First Amendment. Does that mean that a business in the village can post a political sign in their window? I'm not sure.
Yes,
Okay. And does it have to conform to size?
3 square feet.
Pardon?
3 square feet.
According to what we have
Okay.
here, unless we,
So,
yeah.
So we're not restricting what the people say in their windows, but they have to conform to the style.
If it's a non-commercial message sign,
Yeah.
3
Yeah.
square feet. Unless, of course, and again, if they want to take their suspended sign and swap it out for a political message,
So
Right.
I do have a question, and when we
They
come to
could.
that part too.
Right. Yeah, and so my concern is as much as I love upholding free speech, is that political signs, how does a visitor in the town not, how are they able to differentiate between what they would perceive as a message from Solvang versus a business owner? That's my concern.
it's a valid concern, but I mean, it's not on city property. It's not, and people confuse that a lot. Trust me, a lot, especially a lot of visitors. I don't know what to say other than
And then, so last year, coming up 246, right at the top of the hill, there was an extravagant, lush forest of signs. That, because that's on private property, that's exempt.
so again, no. So 3 square feet.
Okay,
Right now, it's the Wild West because we
Right.
don't really talk about it.
right.
So this ordinance helps us discuss that.
Would that property have been under this guideline then?
Well, it's
With multiple flags and,
yes,
message.
because
Okay.
again, and flags are a different
Yeah.
right,
beast.
Yeah.
right,
And we didn't talk about flags here.
Right.
And so, and in that particular property, they were given a code compliance letter
Okay.
stating that they were in violation of our flag ordinance because you're only allowed 2 flags.
Right.
So, again,
So,
take your pick.
yeah, no, thank you.
well, and then that makes me kind of think, all right, can you have one vote for this presidential candidate, that supervisor, this city council person? If they're different signs, are you limited to one under this?
Again, during an election season, which is, I believe we were very clear on
Right,
when it is
okay.
election season.
Right.
It's 30 or
days
60 days
before.
prior to a federally held election, federal state election. Then, yeah,
Okay.
that'll increase up. And
Got it.
then once it commences, you got 10 days to bring
Yeah,
it down.
bring it back down.
Yeah.
On item, section 3, item 3, we've got our signs, the 4 square feet allowed for business information signs. He was talking about, your credit card company and that kind of thing. Honestly, that seems like a lot to me, a 2x2 area in the scale of most of the small businesses and their windows in town. I would consider that a smaller number of square feet as being suitable.
Do you want to go
still-
to?
I think that's enough
It
to,
would be plenty.
yeah, to have your hours sign and you take credit cards, yes.
Anybody against that?
Anybody in the room have any comments? Yeah, and again, please come up anytime you want. Okay.
Let me jump back to what Melissa was saying. In terms of free speech, any message is allowable,
Yeah.
anything,
Yeah.
okay?
I'll qualify that. There are limitations on obscenity. Obscenity is very specifically defined under Supreme Court jurisprudence, but mere profanity is not the same as obscenity. I'll just say it that way.
So when my neighbor had a giant banner that said F the president, that is allowed?
Short answer is yes. There's a case called Cohen versus California from about 1968, I think, where a very similar message was emblazoned on the man's T-shirt as he walked into the courthouse, and the court said, yes, that's protected free speech. Now, if there were, terrible images that constituted obscenity, as that's defined under the case law, that would be something that you could step in and control. But as the justice said in the case, if I remember the quote from the opinion, we can't really define what obscenity is, but we know it when we see it.
Yes, my 5-year-old grandson questioned that heavily.
Yeah,
But this is another topic.
that summed it up well, Dave.
Yeah.
That's exactly what my law professor said.
I found it interesting to see the incorporation of city events and specifically called out as Yule Fest and Danish Days, and that is a new addition here, and I do think it's good that it says official city holiday or event. So it could include, for instance, the 4th of July celebrations. I think of that as being very near.
That's what we're trying to get at, is to be flexible, because we don't know what our next event is going to be that's big. But right now, initially it was Yule Fest, and because that's typically the only one, Danish Days it's a big event. I'm sorry, it is. It celebrates our heritage and our culture.
We know.
Yes. I may not be Danish, but I get it. So,
But I think it's good to have the addition of official city holiday or event, because those will change. And we know back, 10 years ago, we had the Amgen time trials, and that was huge. And that all fits under that as a city-sanctioned event. I am looking at number 6 here, again, still in section 3A, with the art mural. And I put into that, there's also sculptures to consider. So art, I am very much in favor of art murals, publicly viewable art installations requiring review by the committee for time, place, manner. I would like to say that I would like to have input on content. I don't know how that applies with art murals. Our attorney would have to fill us in, but I think it's really important that be coming in front of the committee. And I know that it is potentially fraught with some First Amendment requirements or limitations. But I think it's really important that we do regulate that.
So again, I'm merely cautioning that it's best to leave that alone. But as I mentioned in my presentation, if you want to make it a sign with special considerations, most certainly I can work with Dave to craft the language. Content.
Understood.
I will implore you to not go there.
Understood.
And having had a city have to confront this as to whether or not a particular mural installation was art or a sign, sticking to the reasonable time, place, and manner. If you want to have a mural that is X square feet, it uses specific colors. Those are the kinds of things that you can regulate. And going into what the content is, art is in the eye of the beholder, obviously. And what one person may think is appropriate for a mural, other people may not think is appropriate. And so we have to be very careful about that.
I also think of placement and the visual character of our community. There is such a visual stimulation in our town with the colors and the character. And there have been discussion a couple of places about murals where I think personally, I think it'd be a big improvement and take care of blank walls that are no longer allowed under code. Other locations are a little more problematic because now all of a sudden you have things that become almost visually overwhelming and distracting to the existing signage. So I don't know how that does and doesn't work, but I would very much like to see that it be included in, to the extent that we can regulate it within this document.
So if I can get a consensus from the committee that's here this evening to move that under signs for special consideration, and then we will then craft some time, place, manner stuff that goes with it.
Colleagues?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think we need to have some concept of what the art and the mural size and size and
Location,
colors, let's say.
yeah.
Yeah, and
All
how
right.
those colors fit in the
Right.
placement, in the environment in which it sits, a little bit like our color palettes here.
Right.
Can we, can it be such that it doesn't allow words in it? I mean, is that content? Like if we just, like, they can't have any words in any of it kind of thing?
A mural, right.
That, because I feel as though there could be messages that would be incorporated.
Again,
Cross over into signs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just, I am similar to
To
Dave.
Dave, yeah.
I have PTSD over art mural, one in particular. So
That's the one I was referring to as well.
I think we have different ones.
Was it on the bike store or the downtown one?
Same ones.
Yeah, sorry.
So do we have a consensus about adding it into special, tell me the wording again?
Special signs for special considerations.
Signs for
so,
special considerations.
Yeah, so we'll take a shot at crafting some time, place, manner ones, and you'll see that then next month under that specific section.
Do sculptures fit under that? I know right now
No.
there's a thing where if you have if you have art that's viewable, if you have sculptures that are viewable from the public walkway, that they need to have approval, and I'm almost feeling like that wouldn't even work anymore.
I wouldn't. I
Wouldn't
mean,
touch
encroachment
that.
permit. Yeah, encroachment permit. Yeah, that's public works. I'll give it to Bridget.
Yeah.
But again, I'll get with Dave and we'll get over our PTSD hump and we'll craft something.
To me, those projects are more about safety. With the sculpture, it's like you don't want somebody can crawl on and fall off of, and that kind of thing, more than it is about what it.
You just haven't sat through a 4-hour public meeting for an art mural, have you?
Oh, but I have been on the county arts commission, so believe me, yes, I have.
All those art murals that are in Lompoc that they did on all those buildings, they're beautiful.
Yeah.
Do not get me wrong. I'm a firm believer from a personal standpoint and professional of murals. I think they add quality to our communities, especially when utilized against blank walls and other locations. And in the case of Lompoc, they have themes. They have a whole art committee that goes through there. I know the city of San Luis Obispo has a committee for their utility box paintings. So,
Which is neat too.
yeah, I'm a total firm believer of that. Whether it belongs to sign code, on the other hand, not so much. So,
That's where you draw the line.
Well, and the utility boxes, we do have the
Which I
wrapped
think is
utility
so
boxes, which
neat.
turned out great. We just ran out of money. Okay, so we are now on to, let's see, that was item 6.
and I wanted, before we move on,
Yes.
any objections to putting murals into the special considerations? Again, just want to make sure we're apart here.
He's consulting with the people in the room who are nodding affirmatively. Okay.
I have a question, and I don't know if I'm going to jump ahead, but did you say that window signs are not to exceed 25%
Temp signs.
temp signs?
Yeah.
Okay, so I just want to ask, is a sign that says going out of business a temp sign or?
Well, Yes.
Can be.
Unless it's the
Yes.
name of your business, which
Oh,
is the
that's
case
right.
in one of our Solvang stores. So it
Wait,
would
what?
is it still there? The candle shop upstairs there, where it was called Closeout Candles or
Right.
something like that.
I think
Yeah.
it's gone now,
Yeah, I think it might
right?
be gone.
I think it's gone.
Yeah. So another whole story.
Is it,
So on section 3, item 7, the non-commercial message signage aggregate of 3 square feet in residence or business zones. This is what we're talking about, like, for instance, a real estate sign? Is this give me?
No.
Support the
refresh me.
troops, pray for peace.
Okay, but is this, we're not talking window signs now?
No.
Okay, I'm just trying to kind of get clarity on that.
I hate the sign ordinance. I've had that.
Yeah, okay, and that's exempted. Okay, so are we ready to move on to
Yeah.
4 here? Okay. I do have a question on 4.4, the display LED. It talks about animated, moving, flashing. You also mean just plain illuminated, am I correct?
Yeah, we can add that in just to continue to clarify it.
Yeah, that's what I feel like it made it sound like illuminated was okay as long as it wasn't moving, flashing, blah, blah. And that will apply to,
is illuminated okay? Illuminated signs okay?
no,
Okay.
yeah, not now.
Probably
and-
clarify whether that's internally or externally illuminated. Because if you have a light shining up at a non-illuminated sign, that could be interpreted as an illuminated sign. So just make it clear what you're interested in not allowing.
Thank you for that, because that is, I think, the intent of that.
Yeah, it's the digital display,
Yeah.
So again, not the so there are a lot of businesses, particularly restaurants, that have television screens now that display the menu. That's fine, internal, have at it. We're talking everything that's public facing. So we're talking the open signs that flash, the neon, if it's a neon sign that says open, a digital display that says whatever your special is, and that's the discussion there.
Okay, so for those of us with pages, we're on page 66.
But a sign, to your point about foot candles, if there's a spotlight pointing onto a sign, you have to have a certain limit to the amount of illumination.
And it
That's not
has to be-
considered illuminate.
Yeah, and it has to be
Correct.
down.
Yeah.
I misunderstood that as being, when I was listening to you, I was thinking that you were talking about, like, illumination of the property, not just the signs.
No, just the signs.
Yeah, yeah, that's why I was like, yeah, I did read that part.
And you have not, there is not a standard yet, but will be one on foot candles?
Yeah, so currently there is no standard. This ordinance will introduce that standard. And again, the point being is we want to align with our general plan policies and amendments to advocate for dark skies. This does that. And again, it's mainly really effective. So I hate to pick on it, not Nielsen's, but what's across from Nielsen's? What's the center?
Oh, at the Mercantile? where New
Mercantile,
Frontiers-
yes. So
Frontiers
Mercantile
and-
has a few signs that are visible to residents. Well, if we would have had a foot candle standard, they wouldn't be so visible to residents, now would they? So again, it's a bummer that we can't capture that before, but moving forward, we most certainly can.
And the signs that are illuminated, external illumination, they have to be downward, so they're not shining up and, affecting the night sky.
Okay.
There's standards on that. Roof signs, I would like to revisit that. That is section 4, item 8, roof signs. I know we've got that in here as not allowed. We do have those in the very old world style on Burcomb's in the Fudge Kitchen. Is that something that we want to consider? What was your wording for the mural?
Signs for special consideration.
Yeah. Because I don't think we want them everywhere. It would have to be, regulated by the amount of frontage, I think is the right word, and the scale of the building and neighbors and all that.
Yeah, most municipalities outright ban them these days. So again, and we even ban them in our code today.
So, and I'm not sure if like the two that are there are grandfathered in, obviously, and that's great. We've got two and we leave it at that and just ban them because it does take a lot of regulation. It'd have to be, specific to, being cut out and all that.
That's kind of the thought because, it's what you got now is what you're going to keep. If I'm a property owner with that sign, I'm gonna make sure it's always in good working order, and I never want it gone because it helps to identify you as a place. It's a unique feature.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, do we want to ruin the uniqueness of what's existing by allowing for a roof sign, or do we
Yeah,
just
a
want to say, you know what,
proliferation. Yeah.
I like what we got. I don't need any more.
So that's my question to all of you. We know what's there. Do we want to just call it
Yes.
at that?
Yeah,
Oh, it is.
I
Okay.
feel like there could be opportunity for roof signs, but it's such a rabbit hole on like what looks historic, what's appropriate, what's stylish. Just, we have 2 roof signs, they look great.
And they have enough, and we have, and they're these signs that are non-conforming. There's a complete non-conforming section that they would have to abide by. So there's percentages of destruction, etc. So, I mean, if this is something that we really want to take consideration of how these non-conforming signs are, particularly the roof signs, and in our non-conforming section of signage, we can write an exception. So.
Okay.
At least for those roof signs that are existing.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And I think would be appropriate. Okay. I just want to kind of get everybody else. I like the description of people signs. I mean, I knew what it was. But I thought it was a great. I had to Google that one.
A snipe sign is basically a sign that just you quickly put either on a lawn, a utility pole, a PG&E power pole. You see them all through the weekend advertising
Yeah.
garage sales and everything.
Sale. Yeah.
That's a snipe
Yeah.
sign. Yeah.
The snipe signs are part of the excluded signs under what we're discussing here, and I'm not sure whether they're currently allowed or not.
They are currently not allowed. It's actually,
Yeah.
the language is a complete carryover from the old
Yeah.
code.
Okay.
And again, we're complaint driven. And so when we see them, we can actually take them down if they're in our right of way. Usually 9 times or not, our code compliance officer will go to the home and say, hey, please make sure you take them down.
Well,
That
I
too.
think that's the most annoying thing. First, they put it up illegally, and or the concert that, that was in Ventura. They did that once, plastered town. I would like a little bit more information about wall-mounted cabinet signage, because I think we just approved wall-mounted cabinet signage. So, for Park Place.
No, that's not one. That's not. That's a different sign. That's actually not it. So
Okay, so
it's
help
referred
us
to as a
understand.
can sign. That's what the industry calls it. So essentially, it's a box frame sign with a sign face that when it goes out of business, they slide the face out and put a new face in.
okay.
That's a can. It's called a cabinet sign.
Okay, so that is different from a glass case that
Which would be, I think I wrote it as an informational something sign, or a community informational sign.
Okay, because
that's where that would fall under.
that's what drew, that's why I asked that question, because I thought of that as a wall-mounted cabinet sign.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Is not
No, it was actually the one at Park Place. That is a menu kind of sign.
Yeah, it's a menu sign. Yeah, again.
Yeah.
And that we can't call them menu signs. We call them informational signs. It's
Okay, and you just defined can sign, or can style monument signage, which was one of my questions.
And so the can signs have a very specific definition. They're rectangular or square in shape that are directly affixed and mounted to the. I can get into the definition,
Yeah,
but it's
okay.
extremely specific. But again, I'm trying to think what businesses we have left that have them. I don't think there's many in. But again, just because we don't have them today doesn't necessarily mean you will get a property owner who wants to quickly put up a new sign and this is the cheapest option. Can signs are by far the cheapest sign option there is and out there. And again, if this is about maintaining our aesthetic, they're not even here, I don't even want them here. So.
Okay, so then I think we'll move on to section 5 then. Sound okay? And if anybody needs to take a break, let me know and we can do a 5-minute break here because I think it's going to take a little bit more. And again, looking out to our people in the room, just step on up at any point if you wish to engage in the dialogue here.
And I'm assuming you mean section 6, application requirements and permit procedures?
It says 5 on mine.
Oh.
It says 11, 13,
Oh.
5.
Oh, yeah, sorry, that missed, it's 6 on mine. We haven't
Oh,
new
okay.
procedures. But yes, I
Well,
get
that's
where
what I
you're
was
going.
saying. A little. Okay, so I wanted to just kind of point out, so we're talking here, administrative sign permits are those that staff will be approving over the counter, so to speak. Am I correct in understanding that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Just reviewing one more time the list here. The permanent signage, the sign face change out. Is this what you were talking about, being able to remove a existing sign and replace it with a different message? And I don't mean the different business, because certainly if it's, Park Place and they've got a new business coming into Unit B or something, that's not going to require a permit.
It does, actually.
Does it?
Yeah,
Okay,
so
that's right, because it would be a new
Park Place
business.
is a great example, because Park Place actually has a sign program.
Right.
Don't ask me how they got a sign program, because it's technically not allowed.
Oh, that was part of the whole project that we really worked to do. Yeah, okay.
All that aside,
But we do have a sign
we
program
have a sign
now
program. and the
coming
sign-
in.
Well, it was adopted.
Right,
And as a
okay.
part of that sign program,
Yeah.
it specifically says that they can change out the monument sign for the individual businesses with a staff level approval, as long as it's the same color, size,
Right.
missing something, and font.
Because they have a standard that they already must adhere to.
Correct.
So it's not like a new logo they're putting in, it's a specific font,
Mm-hmm. Right.
size, scale,
Yeah.
all that.
So that technically would be it. That's a change out.
Okay, that's the only thing we mean by change out.
Essentially, that's all we mean by change out. So, and there aren't many of these monument signs that exist. So
Correct.
Park Place is actually a really good example. Assuming we have any cabinet signs, those would be it as well. I believe Nielsen's does have a sign program. It's ancient, but sort of, yeah. Nielsen Center has one. It's old. We've seen it. So, I mean, there aren't many that are out there, but
Right, and I know we had requested that a sign program be put into place or work with the applicant at or the owner at Copenhagen Square regarding
Correct.
that, because there's such a proliferation of signs there.
right. And then obviously the sign program stuff would be a different, we're going to discuss that. This talks
Yeah,
about the
okay.
procedures of it, but the meats and potatoes are under signs for consideration.
Frederick's Court,
Mm-hmm.
all of that.
Yeah, because they have a sign program on the exterior, but it's just a directory. And you can't even read it. I'm in the building and you can't read who it is.
Right.
Please help me understand 1B, exception to administrative sign permits. I didn't quite understand that language.
So again, a great example is, I'll just use the limited duration freestanding banner sign on non-residential properties. If we limit it to 40 square feet and they come in and they're adamant that they want 42 square feet, they have to have 42 square feet. Even at the insistence of Lisa that we can approve it at 40 square feet, they really want 42 square feet. Then it comes to you guys.
Okay, that's what I wanted to be clear on, because as a review authority, and I thought you meant DRC, but I was not quite clear on that.
Yeah. So again, if it doesn't meet the standard and they want to be outside the box, cool. Just
Great, yeah, come see us.
come
It'll
see
just
us.
take you a while longer.
right. And more than likely, your event will be done by the time you get here. So
Yeah, so just conform. As we continue on to sign permits, I did have a thought on 2A and 2B. A sign permit is required for all signs unless otherwise specified in the section and shall be submitted I think it should be submitted, reviewed, and approved by review authority prior to installation of the sign. Or is that redundant? It seemed like it needed that
I mean, we could put it in.
6A and B. It's at the top of the page 67.
It's assumed that we're reviewing it and coming it to you.
Okay.
so- But it's
And-
fine. We'll
And
put
is,
that in.
again, the review authority in this section is the DRC.
That is correct.
Okay, all right. So then it is redundant to add that. I just wasn't quite clear if that meant that it was an administrative process by staff or back to the DRC.
Yeah, essentially, it would mirror the process we have today, which is we review, make sure it conforms or not conforms, and we kick out a report to you guys.
Anybody have more questions on page 67? I have a question on item C. Does this differ from what we're currently doing? Findings for administrative sign permits?
For administrative, no. Yeah, it totally is because it's no process for it now. So
Okay.
basically, it's solidifying that we as city staff, after we just need to determine that it complies with the applicable provisions, we can approve it. That's essentially our finding is you met the standard.
And then, so for instance, at today's meeting where we had the consent agenda with 2 signs, would that be an example of what staff then would permit or approve over the counter as opposed to coming to the DRC?
Yeah, so the suspended sign had it if it met the objective standards for suspended signs. So I know and again, this is next meeting where we want to discuss projection and raised letters, et cetera. If it met all those standards, then yes, we can approve it.
Well, I'm thinking specifically of like the Fur Avenue. Was that's what you're speaking of?
Yeah, no.
So right now, all of the signs come to the committee. Am I correct? Or the
Yes.
DRC.
Yes.
Okay, so I just want to have this group be clear that this bypasses the committee on the great majority of signs. If they're,
Not all of them. Again, the only
Yeah.
things that are being bypassed permanent sign-wise,
yes,
not the temps, so
Right.
not the limited, but the permanents, which you don't even see temps today.
right, exactly.
So the things are the sign face changeouts, which again, we don't have many.
Okay,
Suspended signs where no new hardware will be installed. So usually they're all using the same hardware anyways. So again, a case in point would have been that sign that you saw earlier today under the draft ordinance, and if approved, that could be approved at staff level.
and same with the menu board at Copenhagen Drive.
We haven't got there yet. And
Oh.
I don't think, and that's a permanent sign, and that's not included on here.
Okay, see, that's why I was fuzzy on that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're talking specifically,
Suspended signs,
Okay.
awning signs.
okay.
That's it.
All right, because I just want, I wanted to be real clear what is being switched from DRC responsibility
And-
to staff.
And the idea and rationale is, again, this is me learning, is that, while I would prefer, city staff would prefer that these signs get approved, at a staff level. There is a fundamental understanding that signs, the wall signs in particular, that they do need to have that review to ensure that it goes through this body. And I think I have just come to that realization that that's okay. And with that being said, but a suspended sign, however, if we can just get to the objective standard that says, hey, you need the raised lettered, it can't be X amount of square feet, you're using the same hardware. If we determine that certain suspended signs can't use a certain color, you don't use that color, then why do we need to come to you?
Would you come to, okay, so an applicant comes in and has the wall sign, the suspended sign, which often they'll do a package. Would you then potentially approve the suspended sign independent of the wall signs coming to the committee?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm not sure
If it
that,
met the standard.
okay, I feel like that might be premature because if there was discussion, I guess we aren't addressing content at this time, but we can actually address content in a broader form, if I understand, by not allowing, say, day glow colors, those neon colors.
That's, yeah.
If that's done across the board. We
that-
can regulate font. I'm not suggesting that. I've had colleagues who do. That is not my suggestion. But if we have very clear guidelines, we can. Again, I'm not suggesting that. It seems as though if an applicant is coming in with wall signs, hanging signs, they should be coming in with the entire package to be looked at once, so that if it's only a suspended sign, that is a different, yes, as opposed to you say yes to that, and then even if it's conforming, it's coming to us separately. It just seems like it should be, the full package should be coming to us to understand.
For instance, like the project we did on Frederick's Court, when that California, forgive me, I forgot the name of that company, but the California one that came in, not only did they have a wall sign, but then they had the hanging signs.
Right.
And they came in as a full package, what was gonna go on the wall, the size of it, the color of it, everything.
I mean, that's fine. We can rewrite it to standalone. Ultimately, in the end, these are recommendations, and we'll take it to council. And if council says, no, we want it to be, then we'll follow what council says.
And then the single sign, like like a single sign like this one,
That's a suspended sign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
this to me, like if it's just this one sign suspended, then to me, staff, if it fits within your jurisdiction.
Yeah, so I mean, we can reflect it to basically say suspended signs, where it says where no new hardware will be installed and no additional signage is proposed. Done.
Yeah,
Done,
yeah.
if it fits within your
Yeah,
guideline.
because I think if there's a package, which we often see,
Yes.
a package of signs, that we want to see the full package.
I think so too.
And it could potentially set expectations of the applicant for something different as the outcome versus what was approved over the counter. I see it as potentially indirectly and inadvertently and not intentionally becoming an adversarial situation. We're trying really hard to just not do that. Okay, where were we?
Not to be difficult.
Yeah.
Raphael. But I think we're trying,
I don't want to see it piecemeal. I think that's your
Right.
point.
I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah.
Right. If they're coming in with a larger package, I think we should approve it as a package.
Right.
The
Yes.
single signs, if the single sign comes in and it's perfectly fine with staff, do it. Approve it, do it, move on with it. I don't think we need to be part of that. But if it comes in with a package, then I think we should be part of that.
Yeah, and I think he's found a workaround in the language very quickly there, so that's good. Yes.
Can I jump in?
Yes,
The only issue I do see with that is I could see applicants coming in because a lot of times signage is the last thing they think of. They want to get their signage up. Once we explain the DRC process and that it can take a couple months, that's where we get more temporary signs in the village, so they can say that they're opening or what have you. I think the issue we could run in is them being in a rush and doing the single sign, saying that they'll apply for the other one later. So that's just a thought too.
Well, I think that then it becomes incumbent on staff to really work with the applicant. I guess you can't say they can't come back because that doesn't work that way.
I mean, and again, this is where we do need to work with legal. I mean, where it would say that, no additional sign applications, will be accepted within, or within a year of issuance. But, Lisa is correct. As much as you want to pontificate on this, there and say, well, signs mean everything. 99.5% of the time, signs are the last thing on most of these business owners' minds.
Well, and I think too that by doing this work, that there'll be ultimately information readily available that can be packaged in such a way that it's not only on the website, but it's accessible through the Chamber of Commerce, so that there is a greater understanding of the processes. And I know that everybody's tried to convey that, but there's been it's been kind of a muddy situation with the requirements and the rules, that once this is done, I think it'll be easier to have applicants understand. Maybe I'm naive on that. I'm sure in some ways I am, but I think that we need to really engage the Chamber of Commerce. And of course, when they come in for business license, which is probably about the same time they start thinking about signage, then they need to be informed.
How often do we have a business come in, for instance, the one at Frederick's Court, like the California one that we had, they had quite a number of signs. They had more than 5, right?
Yeah.
We don't have a lot of businesses that come in that have that number of signs on one building. Perhaps we limit the number, for instance, like if they have 2 signs, perhaps you guys go ahead and approve it as staff? I don't know. If it's more than 2, I don't, could there be some guideline in that? I don't know.
Well, and the frontage on that building was
huge.
exceptionally
Right.
large.
It was
That's why they
exceptionally
were
large.
granted an exception, yeah. And the calculations for the signage was
Large, long.
yeah, because of how it fell within the, so to speak, the templates that,
And
for
aesthetically,
measurement.
you guys approved
Yeah.
it because that's what.
Well, and that one was interesting, just as a side note, the colors of it are significantly different than what I anticipated from the pictures that we saw. It's not bad. In
No.
fact, it's actually kind of more peachy than it is, golden poppy orange.
And that was all corporately driven, correct?
Yes. Yeah, which is
That's
often the
corporately
case.
driven.
So, because we still have too much to do.
Yeah, sorry. Just
No,
a
it's
thought,
good.
throwing
good.
out thoughts
So
there.
I think that, let's go back to what we talked about with the adding that change of language that you came up with. So I'm looking at section 6A1, and the sign message is allowed signage may contain commercial and non-commercial message. Tell me give me an example of that. What's the non-commercial message?
Gosh, I had a great
Like-
picture of this, and I didn't include it in the PowerPoint. Let's take one of those Park Place signs on the monument sign, for instance. If a business owner, say they were running for city council, and they owned a business there at Park Place, let's just call it just Wine Tasting Inc. at 9 square feet is what, give or take what that is. So they can replace their 9 square feet of Wine Tasting Inc. with Vote for Joe Smith, council.
Is that something that we must adopt? Because I actually would not be in favor of
We
switching out
have to,
signs.
I'm going to turn to Dave, but
Yeah,
I'm fairly
please-
confident this
please
is something we
enlighten
have to
us.
adopt.
Yeah, because I'm not in favor of that. I mean, is this only utilized for political purposes?
Non-commercial message is that,
Or you can
non-commercial
get into
message.
Content, though.
Yeah, that's the point.
Right, but the sign that is approved,
You're getting into content.
so they can, but then, doesn't that require another permit then,
You
though?
can't approve or disapprove based on comment or content.
Content, but then that content is allowed to switch out at will?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm looking at our attorney. Please enlighten us.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to understand what the question is, and maybe I missed something in the conversation, but we're talking about the differential between a commercial and non-commercial message?
Yes, and the allowance to change out at will a commercial sign that's approved for a non-commercial message.
Well, I think that if we are regulating the time, place, and manner, and the swap out complies with those time, place, and manner restrictions, what is the concern therefore that the city can regulate between the two different types of signs? That would be the question that I would be asking if there was a challenge to that. And so as long as it meets the other standards, whether it has an A or a B in it, it is really not something we should be getting into because that does involve content.
Which is what this,
Okay, so a sign is approved to a new business owner in the community, and they've got their lovely sign hanging on the side of the building that has the name of their business, and they decide to make that sign say, go to church on Sunday, instead of, California Solvang specialties, that is allowable.
As long as it meets the height and the letter heights and the objective standards.
And it's the same.
%.
That is allowable. Interesting. I would not ever have understood that.
well, that's exactly what it says
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, again,
But it's the switch, I guess, is
Right.
that, it can change at will.
it doesn't happen often. And that's
Yeah,
the one thing to
understood.
sort of keep in mind. That doesn't happen very often, but like I said, I should have brought the picture because it did happen one time.
Yeah. Okay.
In the same jurisdiction Dave and I had PTSD from. So
But then
Mine is
that's-
not post because I currently represent that agency.
Well, and then that sign would need to be made of the same high quality material that has the dimensional sign and all that, correct?
that pretty much is. And in this instance where it did get swapped out, it was a can sign that quickly faced out and the face got changed back in. It's like,
Okay.
Okay.
Well, because really this kind of becomes prohibitively expensive
Right.
and very little desire, but I didn't know you could just change at will as long as it conforms to what was approved.
yeah, again, our ordinance that is today is extremely content based, which is why we're
Understood.
really moving away from there. And
Yeah.
but at the same token, we need to acknowledge whether we like it or not the Supreme Court cases that have been handed out since our ordinance was passed, and this is one of them. Because we don't want to be on the losing end of whoever decides to be litigious with us.
I understood what you were saying the whole time. I just thought it must be wrong, but now I know. Anybody else comments on page 68 or 69?
No, but I do have a comment that I need to excuse myself. I was getting past the time and I need to go to another meeting.
Yes, and can we just jump ahead? Is there anything else you would like to comment on
The
before
only
you
other
go?
comment I had, which has nothing to do with signs, was on our next month's meeting. You had asked us if we were all individually available, I think, on the 17th. I assume that was to maybe schedule a meeting on the 17th.
That's correct.
Would it be possible to move it to the next week, the following week? I can be available on the 17th. I'd rather not be for other personal reasons. And I don't think our chair is available on that.
Yeah, I'm out of town
Week
that
either.
date. Yeah.
So if it would be possible to schedule it on the following week, I think it would work better for me.
So I'll take that discussion under another item because
We'll revisit that at the end
Yeah,
of the meeting.
okay.
Thank you
Correct.
for adding the comments before you headed out, though.
I'm sorry I have to go.
Well, and are you comfortable, ladies, continuing? I think we're nearing the end here. So flipping to page 70, unless you had anything on the lighting. I know, Melissa, you had some questions. I don't know if you got it all answered, okay?
Yeah, I think Raphael addressed it and answered it as far as the dark sky
Yeah.
and the illumination.
I think too, I do like the sign maintenance here. I think that's more detailed. Perhaps that's already in there. Again, rules are only as good as the compliance that comes with them.
yeah, the sign maintenance. Actually, a lot of that stuff's already kind of in there. So we just added a couple more things to there and sort of
Not on camera.
we added a couple other things on the sign maintenance to, again, beefing up what was already there because it was a little flimsy. The only thing that was on there was the number 1 and number 2. But 3, 4, 5, 6, those are all brand new. Or excuse me, 3, 4, and 5 are brand new. 6 is also a carryover.
Thank you for the explanation. The limited duration signage, this would often apply, if I understand correctly, potentially to coming soon kind of thing. Am I thinking correctly on this?
No, it depends. Depends on the flavor.
Clearly not in the residential.
Right. Really, so that is more like the banner sign, potential temp window sign. But again, the freestanding, the limited duration signs are really, you're talking your real estate signs, your community civic signs, those things that's what they used to be called. That's what these are.
Okay. Any questions on freestanding? Okay. I do want to discuss just real quickly too, I am looking, where's the banner signs? They are,
On 73.
okay, they're way at the end. Okay, so let's look at page 72 first. We're at item 8 here under temporary signage. The time of display, a B, 8B, item E, they shall be removed each day or before sunset. I thought something like by close of business. So in other words, like if the business is open, it should, if business is closed, the sign should be gone. And I would say removed each day by, at close of business or before sunset, whichever comes first.
I agree.
Because sometimes those signs stay out a long time after the business is,
And if there's no light on them, what's the point?
Right.
It's dark at 5 o'clock.
yeah. I do have a concern about A-frame signs that are on, that I know they're going to be regulated on private property, the style and all, about it being in the pathway, even if it's on private property, that it need to not impede the flow of foot traffic.
That's what DI is for. A-frame
Okay,
signs
so-
should not be placed on private property and cannot interfere with pedestrian ingress or egress as required by the building code.
Okay, so that covers, you feel like that, okay.
Oh, very much covers.
All right,
The building code is very specific on the ingress and egress pathway.
okay.
And I'd rather tie it to the building code versus calling out what that should be because the building code changes.
Okay, and do we have a consensus here about A-frame signs as being allowed on private?
I think we had talked about A-frames at
We
one
were
point in time, didn't we?
At
And
the
we
plant-
discussed,
The workshop. We were kind of ambiguous. It was kind of like nobody had real strong feelings, and in the end, it's like, well, I guess it's okay.
did we discuss, though, in terms of A-frames, didn't we talk about the fact that they should be just wood
Yeah, so hence why,
and not plastic or not
Yes.
metal?
well, and so right now it says solid wood or metal frame. So we can delete metal.
I think we should
Delete metal.
All right.
It's
It
also
should
kind of
just
hazardous.
be only wood.
Yeah.
However, any, like, just because of real estate signs, any kind of A-frame, it has to it's got to have something, it's got to be, because it'll blow over. It will blow over.
Right, and that is the issue with A-frame signs.
And again, it's on private property.
Yeah.
That's the one thing you got to remember.
Sure.
It's on private property.
Sure.
And we
and-
can't regulate it.
And that's something
Sure.
where, hey, if the wind comes over and it blows onto someone and it hurts on someone, who's the liability?
Sure.
Us?
Right.
No. Now we can almost, again, time, place, manner,
Sure.
put in there just to ensure we're clear during times of inclement weather, including rain or
Wind.
or
like every day.
strong wind,
Which
strong
is in
wind.
springtime. Right.
A-frame shall not be displayed. But again,
Ooh.
that's hard. That's why I'd rather just
Well,
not
yeah,
go there.
I mean, I think that it does have its place. It's also common sense. And if it were on public right-of-way, It would absolutely need to be included in there.
Public right of way, then we're talking about anchors and other things, which is,
Right.
again, we're just not going to go there.
Yeah,
So.
got it. Is this the section where we had also talked about A-frame signs down outside of the village
Yes.
area? Okay, so I feel as though A-frame signs should be solid wood everywhere.
Yes. No
that-
plastic, no
yeah.
metal,
Yeah,
just solid wood.
So if that's the case, we will just combine sections 1 and 2 and make it
Good.
a city standard, which is good because now there is no preferential treatment. Everyone's equal.
yeah.
And I think we had also talked about, tell me if I'm wrong, but I believe we talked about the A-frame being all wood, but then we also talked about
Being like a chalkboard.
being a
black.
chalkboard,
Yeah.
or do we make it this, or do we make it that, right?
Well, the frame is wood. And so again, this comes back to the idea and concept of changing the message.
Well, and I think that's really important because you could have an A-frame sign that has a poster in it that's a laminated poster that never changes and is very colorful and all
Right.
that. So I think
That has a cork board on it. I mean, A-frames, you can have the wood frame with a cork board, or A-frame with a chalkboard, or
Or
A-frame
A-frame
with
where you
a
slide in
with a
a-
slide with a plastic slide in, or
Yeah. I mean,
I think we need to kind of narrow that down.
can we say a chalkboard?
can we say a chalkboard, Dave? I was always leery about calling that.
That
Yeah. it-
Yeah, I mean, if you're physically going to be using chalk and a board, that's one thing, but people will use kind of dry erase, or there's this kind of neon chalk that looks like it's on a chalkboard.
True.
We'd have to run that one to ground and really make it clear what is and is not permitted.
Yeah. So, which is why I kind of focused instead on I'd rather see a change of message
Yes.
because that kind of forces the hand. Now, Dave is correct. They could delete a word. It technically changes the message.
I would actually be more inclined towards trying to figure out if there was a way to make this chalkboard thing more defined. Because am concerned about, yeah, you can change out the message, but again, you can have one of those nice laminated boards that slide right into a wood frame, and you've got just this proliferation of signage. And I understand we're talking about on private property, but these places are often visually, they're in the visual corridor as you walk down the sidewalk. And in fact, if they're doing it right, that's the goal, So how do we make this I think your picture that you had in the display showed a kind of chalkboard thing, that it was visually, it conveyed a message. It was something like hate us on Instagram or whatever it was kind of like I saw it. But
comedy one
it
called up.
wasn't it was a kind of homespun message board. It wasn't something that was really bright and really colorful and conveyed a message about the business without being a big poster. Am I saying that at all? Yeah, well,
Let me see what else we can cook up then under the
Okay.
materials and design section and come back with, again, options. Because again, I don't want a dry erase board.
no.
no.
We want to see a chalkboard.
Yes.
Right.
Corkboard, maybe.
Half and half.
Yeah. So let me do a little bit more research on that, knowing because the point of it is we want the message to change. That's really what it
Right.
comes down to.
Correct.
Right. And I
And-
think simply by virtue of having a chalkboard-ish kind of thing.
Yes.
Even if you put a spray on to keep that message, it only lasts so long.
Right.
So,
Do we also want to define because you could attach a flyer to it too? If
Yes.
you're only
Right.
doing handwriting or.
can we do that?
Yes, no additional attachments are allowed except for the face. No additional attachments of
I'm kind
signage
of
on the
in
face.
for that because otherwise they're going to, and then you've got things that are going to be taped on or magnet, which is not good with little
We,
kids.
we already have signs with tape
Yeah.
on stuff here.
Yeah.
Not to call out anybody.
Right, that really don't look good, because that's why we're laboring over this, because we, some of us do know how it can be a not attractive merchandising tool. Thank you for bringing that back with a little work. On B, item H, it doesn't say, okay, so the attention at getting devices are under the category of allowed?
No.
I think you mean prohibited, but the top sentence says temporary signs allowed. The following signs are allowed.
Right, and then if you read it, use of additional attention getting devices directly affixed or immediate adjacent to the A-frame, including but not limited to. Oh,
There's not the
there-
word
there's
prohibited. Yeah.
Thank you.
So it's like, those are allowed? So I think you just need to add prohibited.
Hence why it says draft.
Yeah. And so we're just eliminating section 2 because it's all covered in section 1. So
Yeah,
it's
so the
fine.
notes are to combine section 1 and 2 as to make it as one, and then the max 6 feet. And that's, again, doing a search. It seems like a lot, but, the reality is it won't, that you're limited by your height. We can always dial that back down a little bit, so.
I think what to me comes to mind is a little bit like the menu signboard that we just approved. There used to be a standard for the menu signboard, and I think you heard me say this before, that was like a half an inch smaller on 2 sides than what was, or bigger than what was allowed. But that's what you could commercially purchase. So what's a commercial kind of regular size?
Hence why it was 6 square feet is what the max commercial is typically.
Okay, so I think we need to align it with what is commercially available, because that's what people are going to be using. And if there's a small and a large, I would advocate for the small. But it kind of seems like they're all a pretty standard size.
Yeah, I don't know if you would want to go, I don't know. I don't know
Yeah.
if you want to go super small. I just
No.
feel like people sometimes don't see the small ones and they trip over them.
Right, because a too small is
They're
going to be
too small.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they're the kind that go more like on a table almost or something, as
Right.
opposed to on the ground.
Right.
Okay. I think we're done with page 72, unless
Oh my
any
gosh.
comments. All right, we're down to, and the audience is still here. Thank you for hanging in there, and they're not sleeping.
All right.
Would you like to come up to address? Please, yeah. Please.
I'm behind the time.
Okay, that's okay. Come on up to the microphone and identify yourself, Stephanie.
I'm Stephanie Statham, and I live in Solvang, close by. And I came here because I thought we were looking at, and I missed the meeting because I thought it was at 6 and it was started at 5. I came here to look at the colors.
We're coming back
We're
to
coming
that.
back.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I
So,
stuck around, and a couple of the things that you were talking about a little while back, as far as
are we talking about the sign still?
Sign.
Oh, great, yeah.
I'm talking about illuminated signs with a spotlight on them
The,
and the wattage of the light
Yes.
yes.
is what I'm concerned about, because I happen to live across the street from a business that illuminates their sign, and that light won't, the light that they bought is a fixed light and it won't move, and consequently, I have a bar of really bright light shooting into my window. And if
That
I
is-
want my curtain closed, if I don't want my curtain closed, I have this light shining in there. And also I noticed, well, it's not in this town, but there's a sign that's illuminated where my mother lives by a light on the ground. And it's so bright that while you're driving, it is really distracting from the side of your eye.
Yeah.
And a couple of times that light across the street from me has this.
Well, and that is not a conforming light. And any signs that are illuminated in Solvang have to be illuminated. You know, you'll see the sign and then it kind of has a light like this. So it has to have a contained
It
illumination
is contained,
area.
but it's not completely, so there's
Yeah. And you can talk to staff at another time about
okay.
that specific sign, because I think that there's potentially solutions there, it sounds like. Yeah, because it should not be illuminating your place across the street, from what I understand.
Yes, there's existing.
Yeah.
We can
Right.
talk after the meeting, but
Okay.
Yeah.
get your information.
The other thing I wanted to say is, and this doesn't happen very often, but occasionally somebody loses their pet, and this pet goes feral. I mean, you can't catch him, and it's taking a couple of weeks. That happened in Solvang, in Ballard, and posters are your best tool for getting at the moment sightings of a lost pet. And so I'm here to advocate, even though I know you don't want them, to be allowed those signs for pets.
Yeah, for lost cat, lost dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, there's a lot of people in town here with lost cats. And
We have an active coyote population.
well, their cats are allowed to roam, and so, you know, I don't know if we want to make an okay for cats, or, you know, but for those dogs, when there's a really, you know, there's sightings all over and nobody can catch them, that can take 3 weeks or a long time, and those big posters are really important. I mean, really a great tool.
I think and ordinarily we don't have dialogue back and forth, but tonight we're allowed to do it. I think that Raphael or our attorney can speak to this better, but we're constrained by, you may have heard him keep saying, not addressing content, but rather time, place, and manner. So I don't believe you can say no garage sale sign, no poster for the concert, but okay to put up a poster for a missing cat or dog.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you can't do that. In practical reality, I won't speak to what is or isn't done. So, but I understand the immediacy of that.
It was that the city could actually just come and take them down. And it's a lot, what I meant to say was that those posters are a lot of work. Just the idea, when you have a lost pet, the idea of having to squat down on the floor and, you know, you're making sign after sign, and you got to put them in a 2-mile radius, and your pet is still missing, and for somebody to just come and take them down is a big bummer. You know, if they could just call you and tell you, maybe that would.
I think that they do try to do that. And I guess that's what Nextdoor is really good about, you know, and these days too, finding other platforms. But Phil, I haven't lost a pet like that, but I've certainly seen signs and felt empathy for those who have. So,
Okay,
thanks.
and so those color chips are going to be discussed next time?
Yes, and we'll have a better color options for you, for everybody to look at.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm not, will it be, just to kind of quickly divert, will we be doing that at the July meeting?
We'll discuss that once this item's complete.
Okay, yeah, we'll bring that back at the end. Okay, thanks, we're back. We're down to the end here with our banner signs. I wanted to ask, I don't see banner signs in use in town on any kind of basis, other than occasionally there's a grand opening. And they're very temporary, and sometimes it's even like the ribbon cutting thing. Do we see banner signs in town?
What about the one that crosses Mission?
I don't think that's what we're discussing.
That's a city-owned sign. It would be
Yeah,
exempt.
yeah, because that's, yeah.
That's the only one I can.
And then there's the one over at the Mission, which is a pole sign, yeah.
On the mission ground.
Well,
But
yeah, and it's a pole sign,
It's a pole
not a
sign,
banner.
and it's technically, they're.
It's theirs.
Well, yeah,
well,
but I
it's
don't know,
great,
if
but
they're not completely conforming
they're not
either.
compliant, is what I'm
Yeah.
almost trying to get at. So,
Well,
And we've had this discussion with the mission, and we have admitted that like I said, I can open up that code book and it's one singular sentence, and it's approved by city manager, but there's no time, place, manner, duration, size, anything. And a lot of people do use the excuse that, well, it's on the mission, it's private property. Cool.
That's a community service. It is.
No matter which way you look at it,
Yeah.
whether community service or not,
But
it's
you-
still a private property regulation, and,
Right.
and the zoning ordinance still dictates how time, place, and manner of how you can do things.
Okay, and you have the authority to issue that.
Under the proposed code, yes.
Yes.
Yes. So
And have with guidelines. I don't really feel as though we need banner signs. The idea of having banner signs 2 or 4 times a year, having a 6-foot sign in front of a business for 2 weeks and thinking about all the different businesses that could be doing that. I don't really think of any businesses as currently utilizing that tool. But am I missing something? Have you seen, I would like to eliminate the usage of banner signs.
So again, currently we have it, and we've had applicants approach us about it in terms of having a one-off on a weekend. I know last year we had a wine tasting place that had some sort of anniversary in town. Correct, but it was specifically for a weekend. We have a specific shop here that asks to do a banner and other decorations for their anniversary. It happens. Valley Hardware has them very often, believe it or not. If you're
Yeah.
just,
Yeah,
you're,
they do.
they're there.
Yeah, no, they are.
You're just, you're not looking for it. Bookloft has them, so they use them, and it's just some people ask us about it, and then we tell them the regs. Some people don't; they just put them up, and if Jennifer sees them, she'll write a letter about it. So again, it's kind of being cognizant of that. Is well, you all might not see it, we see it, and we get inquiries about it. And again, it provides another tool for a business.
Absolutely.
And that's sort of the aspect of it. Hence why it's written that it's not, 6 foot long, it's 20 square feet. So if you want to dial that down further,
No.
let's do it.
What 20 square feet is,
A 4x5,
yeah, I mean, that's a
4x4.
pretty,
That's pretty fair.
that's a pretty big, I mean, I think of 6 by 2 or 3 as being,
Yeah, it is 6x2. That's the 6x2
Is
but
12.
It's 12, but then that's
Yeah.
kind of nothing. So I
Right.
mean, we can dial it down. Again, we want to use even numbers. So 18, it could go down to 18. It could go down to 16.
yeah, I would say
go down to 12.
Yeah, because I think a 6-foot banner for almost all of, and if you're having a banner made, because most people are having those produced online, that's a 2 or 3 foot by 6 foot is really standard. I
Yeah,
just-
6
just
by 3 is-
ordered.
yeah.
I just ordered one today. It was
Yeah,
6 by 2.
6x3 is 18.
Yeah.
So I mean, we can dial that down and be happy to. It's just
I actually think we should do it 6 by 2 if we're gonna do banners and.
12 square feet.
Yeah, I limit it in scale.
I don't feel that way I don't feel that way. I mean, I'm fine with the banner, especially if we're only doing it for special occasions. If they're
Well,
only putting it up for a big sale, or if they're only putting it up for a special event, and it's only going up temporarily, so to speak, it's not up full time. I don't have a
I worry about the proliferation. So I think it really needs to be defined.
I'm not worried about the size of it if it's a temporary thing.
We've also received applications for events that are out of the city too, just to take that into consideration.
Yeah. So again, it's
Out of, what do you mean? May I ask?
Outside of the solving,
So
So-
events that aren't solving centric.
yeah, that would be covered under the limited duration. So we got that covered already, but this was more, but at least it does have a point. So again, understanding that there's be proliferation, they still need to apply. They still need to pay a
course.
fee.
Right.
We track them. We have an
course.
electronic tracking system.
Right.
And again, understanding, we almost need to always remember what was the genesis of not banning them back in 2010. We didn't have electronic tracking. We didn't have the staff. We didn't have, the means. So outright banning it kind of makes sense, because if you don't have the means and the staff to track something, then why bother?
Right, enforcement.
Right.
Yeah, if you don't have that capacity.
But at this point, we do have a full-time code compliance, and that person is very diligent on working with our businesses. Businesses do still come in and ask for these things. So again, limiting their duration, even, down from 20, bringing it down to 18, that
Sure.
18
Yeah.
or 16
Sure.
makes total sense. If you want to limit to consecutive days down to a weekend, so 3 days, 4 days max, fine. But at least it still gives the parameter, and it gives that ability to a business to say, look, you only get 2 shots at this per year.
Right.
Right,
So make
And
it
you
count.
covered that in this draft.
right.
Yeah.
Which I think is great.
And then it's more if you're outside of the village mixed-use area. So if you're down at Valley Fresh or
Sure.
something like that, where it's, I look at that as being our local traffic area.
Yeah,
Yes.
And it's a
absolutely.
whole different
Yeah,
deal.
It's a whole different animal.
Yeah.
It's a whole different beast.
So,
Which,
because I'm thinking of the village area. So are we okay saying 16 square feet instead of 20, and then doing it, a time of display would be a maximum of how many days, up to twice per year in the mixed use area? I think that the rest of it for outside of it works well. Is 7 days? Can we cut that down? Do we need a full week?
Let's just do 5 days.
Yeah, okay.
I'm okay with 5 days, and then may I, now, again, the whole point of this is to free flow, is we should put up a minimum of 90 days before our next banner could come up. Because then again,
Yes.
that really starts to put the onus on
Right.
the business owner to
Absolutely.
think this
Right.
through.
Right.
And a maximum of twice during a calendar year, or whatever
Correct.
Right.
year definition you have.
Correct.
See, that makes good sense to me, and, I just have this vision of 20 stores having a banner thing, and is there a way of time of display? We've got the duration. Are we able to define it as a special event banner? I know that we aren't going to define special event, but
Honestly, I would leave it at the discretion of the business owner. This is where one of these things where I believe that government has a place to regulate. At the same token, a business owner has a place to understand their business needs and what they need. And if someone wants to put up a banner, specifically, case in point, for Danish Days, that specifically targets that crowd because they have a product that they know flies off the shelf, and they want to use that banner for those 5 days,
They can do it.
they should by more than means be able to do it.
okay, and so when we said banners earlier not allowed during Danish Days and Yule Fest, that was a different kind of banner.
Yeah, which,
It's specifically referring to, and again, it's very specific. These are banners that are attached to a building, not
Right.
a fence, not a
Right.
temporary pole sign or temporary poles in the ground.
And
So
the other was referring to those temporary, I call them bigger signs.
yes,
Okay.
advertising, and I don't want to name these events because I don't want to call them out. So,
Right.
but there are other events that are going on in the valley during the Christmas season.
Sure.
That
So
directly compete with our events.
Right, yeah. So if one of the other communities is having something, we're not going to advertise their event that takes the community away from the Solvang event.
And that's the way I look at it. This is if you are in our city limits
Right.
and you want to advertise something from a limited duration, then it's got to be something for us. And it's easier to just say, you know what, we're just going to outright ban all of them during this duration. We don't want to take your application. We don't want it at all, because we as a city, we are putting our time, effort, and taxpayer dollars towards Yule Fest.
Okay.
Well, and it makes it very clear, and it's equal application there. I believe that we made it through, unless there's any other comments in the room. I don't see anybody but our attorney on Zoom.
Well, thank you. We will continue the item.
Yeah.
based on the discussion we're going to have next.
Right.
But again, what I could do is put up this first draft up on our website, and we can say, hey, the first portion of the draft, based on the comments that I've solicited. So if you notice, I was changing things on the fly. That's the beauty
I
of
didn't,
technology.
but
Most of the comments that I've taken are actually already now in our new draft ordinance, so that's great. So we'll continue to cook on a couple items, particularly the A-frame item. We're going to move the murals into signs for special consideration, and so the next step is looking at the second half, which is permanent signage, and that's a big one.
Yeah.
And so that's why that's going to kind of be on its own. And I'm kind of really thinking about it. It might just be its own little deal.
can we, okay, either that or we need to have it like in 2 chunks.
Yeah, I'm
Because
thinking,
This is the easy part. You know,
Right.
so when we get to the rest of it, it's far more complicated,
So,
I would say.
yeah, so I'm based on this, I'm looking at the permanent signs on its own, and then the special consideration signs, and then the latter half sit on its own. Because again, special considerations are ones that we really need to think about. What is that consideration that needs to have, that applicant needs to meet in order for y'all to approve it, so.
In
All
other
right.
words, bring the sleeping bag.
Okay, I think that we have concluded this item, and we're moving on to committee member comments. Committee members, any comments? Okay, I do have a couple, of course. First of all, current website, or current projects on website, nice to be able to look at the update there. Be even great when we can get like a link to where the approval took place or to conversation. I don't know if that is potential, but it's great to have made this advancement on that. A couple things that I had questions of community members asking me that I'd like to pass on. One is in regards to your neighbor at the annex at planning at the old Valley News / Legion building with the temporary fencing. Question is, how long is temporary fencing allowed to remain in without any work progressing?
The work is finished, so we can discuss that, but the fencing is there to basically ensure the site is secure. So that's security is part of the main reason why it's there.
Okay.
I know it's an eyesore, but
Well,
they are working on
the
something.
big stuff growing, I mean, you can walk by and see the dandelion that's, 3.5 feet tall, so I don't.
I will discuss this with code compliance.
Yeah, okay. The other question that I'd had was somebody who had gone over, and I've noticed this too, over at Park Place, that they have craft fairs some weekends where they utilize their parking lot.
Yes, they do.
So getting to, somebody was supposed to meet a friend there and ended up, the parking lot across the street, by the visitor center was full and ended up way down here, well, actually, right out here in front of City Hall to go over to Park Place because the parking was being utilized for craft fair as a regular basis.
Well, it's once per month per their
Right.
approved TUP.
Okay, all right. so
They have an approved
there you go.
they have an approved temporary use
Okay,
permit.
that's, I guess that explains that it is an approved use, and is it like which?
It is the monthly, what does she call it?
It's an artisan fair.
Artisan fair.
Yeah, but what day, is it like the,
First Saturday of the month, with the exception of December, where it is the
Okay.
second Saturday of the month because we made her do it the second Saturday.
oh,
of the
so
month.
it wasn't like the weekend?
It's an
Well-
artisan's market.
Yeah. And the reason being is the first Saturday of December is our Christmas parade.
Right,
So we
exactly.
didn't want that to compete.
Yeah,
And they do this actually all over. So they did it in Los Olivos. They'll do it here, but it's kind of like,
so
Yeah.
they're somewhere every weekend kind of
yes,
thing.
yes.
Yeah, but they're with us first Saturdays of the month. One of the business owners in the Park Place organizes it. The artisans that are there are actually required to have business certificates as well as health licenses. All this actually that was done prior was actually done illegally. But now we have something in our code to allow it, so we should just follow the property owners.
And it's great because they're local. They're all
I love
local
the concept,
people.
and I love craft fairs.
great, yeah.
And so it's, but what I found out is that this is a permitted process, and yeah, parking is going to be tough. Okay,
Welcome
so
to-
then we're on to, and you already heard Rich's comment, so now we're on to city staff comments.
Well, thank you. It sounds, so I believe, Chair, you were out that
Yeah, I'm
meeting.
out of
Sounds like
town,
Richard
yeah.
may or may not be available.
Yeah.
We need to have the meeting, so.
Well, and because we have colors, and I believe we have other.
So we do have an item that's beside, and Lisa has signs. And I would love to push out a meeting to the next week. However, we do these meeting schedules in January, and we purposely pause city council meetings for the end of July. So guess who's on vacation at the end of July?
Okay.
As a matter of fact, I booked my ticket not an hour before this meeting. So the plan.
Gone then too.
The,
And I don't
the,
know,
the
yeah.
plan would be this, is we're going to hold the meeting in July as scheduled for our items. Now, we can put a pause for the signs and the colors to the August meeting. And so that would just make it a very regular agendized meeting with the items.
Why don't we just do that? Because you're going to be gone and Rich is going to be
Yeah,
gone?
possibly. Sorry, I'm getting a reflection
Yeah,
straight in my mind.
and I just need to make sure that we do have a quorum for this meeting.
Yes.
Are we?
Well,
is
it's just
this-
going to be Melissa and myself and,
Is this
Shirley.
Cottages meeting?
It is.
So it's a really big, important meeting.
okay.
It's a ambitious conversation and agenda item.
Yes and no. So we did meet with legal staff in regards to the item. So we'll be presenting it out. So, but yes, that's the big item is going to be the materials change, specifically the roofs and colors and some materials for the lily sod. Yeah. So that will be ongoing. That'll be that item for that meeting.
Okay.
I had the potential, I may be able to zoom in, but I understand that since the pandemic has officially ended, that zooming in as a committee member is not permitted to be part of the conversation.
It is, Dave, but there's some processes for it.
There are specific rules for it that you would have to follow. If you want to give me a call tomorrow or the next day, I can kind of walk you through those. But the good old days of just jumping in on a Zoom meeting has changed at the legislative level.
Yeah, understood. I didn't even know there was an option.
Yeah,
so.
and before you do that, we could talk offline.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, I'll talk to Raphael first.
Yeah. Aside from that, like I said, Lisa has a couple items for the DRC at the next meeting. So it sounds like based on the consensus that we'll put a pause out. We did do a press release that we'd be doing this in July.
Okay.
And that actually, it kind of works out in our favor because currently Randy and I, and with Lisa's help, we're going to potentially we'll set up a booth at the on one of these Wednesday music in the parks, and
Oh,
we'll have the
good.
colors and talk about signs.
Yeah. Good.
So
Okay.
again, not a workshop, but just a different way to get out the
Well,
community.
and then we can stop by.
Well, we
just
can be
can't-
there
You
too.
can be there and stop by,
But we
and
can only kind of be there one at a time, right?
you enjoy the thing. Let us work our events. But this actually might present an opportunity for us to do
community
that, to do
input.
community input that way, knowing that we have a pause and knowing that we actually have some good temp stuff in. So that way we can solicit some feedback. So
And I would really encourage you to have illustrations to accompany it. I can't say enough how important.
How
I think
important that
it
is, yes.
To
The
have
visual.
examples
Yeah.
that are positive examples of application of colors. And because I've said this and a bunch of times, I'll say it again, you can have every objective standard set for colors, and you can have an applicant pick colors, all that are approved, but put them together and it doesn't necessarily work in that project, let alone in the environment.
So I will send out an email, since we have 2 missing members, to email city staff of what they believe are good color projects.
Yes.
And that way we will task Lisa or Maddie, or maybe Donna, our Public Works student intern, to go out and take some photos. So
Yeah, it'd be great.
Great. And I think that there's potential for getting some images from rural Denmark
Yes.
that is similar to Solvang, as opposed to what's often looked at with the area in Copenhagen, which really doesn't have similarities in building styles.
So if you want to provide that to us, that would be fantastic. And again, I'll put this in an email, blind copy everybody, so that, again, the point of this is to be very much open and have this dialogue. Aside from the items that we have in July, this is our work effort right here. So, Lisa's learning some new graphic design programs. So she put together this packet. This will be her child. I'm just
Wow.
overseeing. And then the sign ordinance is my child. So anyways, this was an excellent example of how we can morph a workshop. So I really appreciate your patience and the folks
Thank
that are
you.
here.
Yeah.
And then we will
Sticking with us.
Thank you.
continue the outreach, and I'll wrap up my comments. So.
All right, I believe that concludes our meeting, and we will adjourn at 7:45.